you've seen Yojimbo all the way through. I'm gonna let you take the lead
But
on this
oh
one.
no, I'd never seen this before.
Oh, you never seen it before? I thought you had. Okay.
No, 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 no. I this was a first for me. The only one that I'd seen before was Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah, we're gonna have
Yeah,
to temper our
and it's been
take.
a while since I
True.
saw Yojimbo. I've watched Sanjuro like 2 or 3 times in the past year because I really like that movie, but I haven't seen
Hmm.
Yojimbo for a while. But I did immediately recognize, I was watching this with my girlfriend's dad who has this on. Like, oh my God, the adventure to getting this movie. So he brings up a DVD of it, right? And I'm like, oh, cool, that's awesome, because I thought I was gonna have to rent it for a second, right? So we put the DVD in, and the first thing that pops up is like, this image was formatted to fit your screen from its original. I'm like, you did not fucking buy this in standard definition. You did not buy a version of a Sergio Leone film that has been turned into a 4:3 aspect ratio. You did not fucking do this.
It's so funny because when I was getting ready to watch this movie as well, for anyone I guess we're live. I didn't realize that. Hello, 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 everyone on the internet. This is a first time watch for both you and I. So
Yes.
that many of you, it seems, have seen all of these movies many times, but this is a first for both of us. I went to watch it. I went to like rent it. Like I didn't feel like paying for it at first, so I was like, the Roku channel, whatever. Tubi or whatever. I'll watch it with ads. I'll suffer through the ads because I just didn't feel like paying for it. But then both versions are cropped to 4:3, and I'm like, no, this is a very widescreen movie. I'm not going to do that. So
Yeah.
I spent the $4, and I'm very
Oh
glad I
wait,
did.
you did what?
Because
It's on
what?
YouTube for free.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, you can watch
Well,
it
that's
on
fine.
YouTube. You can watch it, I mean, with ads, but like you can. Well, that's what we did. We just
I
bounced over to the
decided
YouTube
I was like,
instead.
you know what? We're gonna not watch it with ads. We're gonna spend $4, and I'm very glad I did because man, this is a great movie. I was very, very, very,
Oh
very
hell yeah.
happy with this movie. I love the way it looks. We're gonna talk all about it. But yeah, this had been a blind spot for me, and so I'm very glad you decided that we should talk about it because oh boy, what a movie!
Yeah, it's fucking great, dude. I love Yojimbo. I love Senjuro. And basically seeing that transplanted into the Old West, that just fucking slaps. That just hits for me. That's what I want to see from
Yeah,
movies.
yeah.
I love samurai movies, and I love this kind of Western. This is awesome. Unreal. And so people, I've seen some people talking about it in the chat about, do you prefer this? Do Jimbo? And I don't know the answer to that. It's been a while since I've seen done a full watch through of your Jimbo. But this is one of those rare instances, I think, where like something that's been remade, like they, to me, they're both about equal for like basically the same and different reasons, right? Like I just feel like even though it is almost like it's pretty by the numbers copy pasted plot wise, I feel like it does enough differently that obviously it stands on its own, right? But like I don't think one takes away from the other at all, right? Like they're just both great. I highly recommend watching them. I also happened to notice that this and for a few dollars more are both currently on YouTube right now for free. They have ads, but who cares? They're both great.
If you have an ad
If
blocker,
you, I
then they
guess
don't have
I
ads.
haven't seen for a few dollars more yet either, so I'm excited to check that out at some point very soon. I
Yeah,
hope.
so almost everyone in the chat will already know this, but for the few that don't, A Fistful of Dollars by Sergio Leone is a remake, very, very close to beat for beat remake of Akira Kurosawa's Yojimbo, which came out, I believe, 3 years earlier in 1961. This came out in 1964. What I was curious about, because you've told me that Sanjuro is kind of a sequel to Yojimbo, right? Is
Yes.
Sanjuro for a few dollars more?
No. Apparently, they're both. Those are
No.
different.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that part, so I just thought I'd ask. But
Yep.
yeah. Hello, everyone in the chat. I hope you're all doing well. Hope you're having a fine Sunday. I know I sure am. We're going to be talking about A Fistful of Dollars today. So strap in.
Yeah. One of
And
Quentin
if you haven't
Tarantino's
seen it,
favorites.
well, yeah, I can
Oh
absolutely
yeah.
understand why
Oh,
this is
for
one of
sure. Yeah.
Tarantino's favorites. I'm pretty sure there's a piece of music from this movie that he used in one of his films.
I wouldn't be
I,
surprised.
there was something that played. I'm like, I've heard that before. I bet you he took it for something. But yeah, if you haven't seen A Fistful of Dollars, you need to go watch it. So, don't let us spoil it for you. We are going to spoil it. We're going to go into all sorts of detail. So, go check it out. This is an easy recommend. It's the kind of movie where if you haven't seen it before, like I hadn't, like you hadn't, like maybe a couple people in the chat have not, you're gonna watch it and you're gonna be like, oh, okay, I can see that
It's
this
this
was an
movie.
incredibly influential movie. That like I've seen so many movies do things that this movie does, but this movie just kind of does them all really exceptionally well, I would say. Um, yeah, like
Yeah.
it was kind of it's weird to call a movie groundbreaking that was basically a ripoff of another
Something
movie,
else, yeah. But
but it really is
it really is.
stylistically, I think is
Stylistically, yeah, this really
yes.
changed the game. So I was telling you just a little bit earlier about how I spent my day yesterday in Washington, D.C. at the Sakura Matsuri Festival, the big blowout finale for the Cherry Blossom Festival. And I was walking around in one of those Vietnamese rice paddy farmer hats, and with a green kimono with like swirls on it because I found one of those and I was like, that's pretty fucking cool. And I realized as I was doing that, I'm like, oh, dude, I'm like cosplaying the Asian version of Clint Eastwood from this movie. Like, this is pretty cool. You could, it, I love the congruency between samurai and cowboys. There's just something that really hits for me in that.
Yeah.
And I had a great time with this movie. I am very excited to check out the sequel, and I kind of did Yojimbo soon too. It's just one of those that makes me excited about everything this can be.
Oh
So yeah,
yeah. Well, I think it feels kind of, pertinent or whatever the word you would use is that like, recently on Twitter there was that whole thing where they changed the algorithm such that translated posts from Japan just would show up in your feed. And I'm like, this is great. Everyone seemed to be having a good time with it. It's just kind of fun to notice how certain cultural things like the samurai and like what like Japan loves Texas and like what stereotypical Texas cowboy rodeo culture and stuff like that. So I'm like that's pretty fun to see that just how much overlap there is and how much you can just because this is not the only example. There are many many examples and it goes
oh
both
no,
ways
there's a
of
really
like
good remake of Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven that did that as a samurai movie
yeah
with Ken
that sounds
Watanabe, and I
that
really
sounds
loved that.
great. One
Yeah,
of my favorites. So I have not seen. There are many classic and very well regarded westerns and samurai movies I have yet to see, and I'm trying to change that because, especially, I think it was mentioned earlier by Topaz Dude in the chat. Yeah, we're in a really bad spot for new movies, but there's always hundreds of great movies that you still haven't seen, right? So
yeah.
that's something we want to correct and try to talk more about some of these old movies. But one of my favorite Akira Kurosawa movies is Throne of Blood, which is, of course,
Hell
the
yes.
Macbeth adaptation. I absolutely adore that movie. And I was thinking about it. I'm like, fuck it, that could make a good Western too. Why not?
Yeah.
You'd have to change some things, obviously, because there wouldn't have been like literal kings, but you can make that work for sure.
Oh yeah.
It's really interesting how well they transplant, because this is the quintessential like mysterious man rides into town, finds a problem, and then helps the people solve it, and then rides off into the sunset, which is like a trope that works very well in certain areas of certain like what's the word time periods in Japanese history with the sort of like wandering
Yeah.
samurai ronin stuff. So there's a lot of yeah, just
They
it's
were
interesting.
happening at the same time too, really. It's
Yeah,
like
that's
that's
crazy
the
too.
crazy part.
That's crazy. I don't, that sort of stuff is always really funny. Like when like two historical things that you assume are kind of separated by like hundreds of years were happening at the same time. It was a
Yeah.
trivia question recently that like true or false, like Beethoven was composing at the time of the American Revolution. It's like, yeah, he was
Yeah.
an actor even.
Yeah.
It's just interesting. You don't always think, yeah, I don't know. It's just
True or
interesting.
false, there were legitimate samurai at the time of the American Revolution. Like
True.
they still had a good like almost 100 years to go before they opened up and started modernizing. before that, around that point. So, you know,
West 6156 says Japan loves the Texas of 40 to 50 years ago. I don't know if the current new citizens of Texas will inspire the same sort of admiration. Well, I think we're both in the same boat in that we who like a lot of Japanese culture and the Japanese who like a lot of American culture are both sort of longing for the culture that is on the verge of being lost, right? The stereotypical regional historical cultures that we're trying to preserve and maintain. So I think it kind of goes both ways there as well, because I like a lot of Japanese stuff. I don't really go for anime so much, and a lot of that
yeah,
very
that's
modern.
changing for me a little bit. I've watched a couple that I liked. There's one that's really funny called Spy Family. That's sort of like a parody of James Bond almost, which is like it's a pretty good comedy that I just recently started watching. But like for the most part, I'm not big on anime, but I am big on like Harakiri, Death of a Samurai, like those old black and white and color
Oh,
samurai
Harakiri
movies.
was great. I forgot
Harakiri,
we watched that together. That's an
abs, dude.
excellent
Yeah, it's
movie.
so good.
Topaz Dude calls it one of the 10 best movies ever made. It's up there.
Yeah, sure
It's
is.
up there for sure. It was. I was blown away by how good that was.
So one
Great.
thing Topaz Dude is bringing up a lot of good shit in the chat right now because I saw him. So there's a couple that I wanted
This is
to
bread and
bring up.
butter, I can tell.
Yeah, he asked, "Have y'all seen Once Upon a Time in the West?" Many argue it's Leone's best movie. I still have not seen that one. No, I have not seen that one yet. The only other one that I've seen, and I think we watched it together. We watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah, years
Yeah,
ago now.
yeah,
Yeah,
we watched that together,
that's
and we
the
were.
only one.
That's the
I
only
have.
one, and I feel like so our responses to that movie were not what they probably would have been had we seen this one first. I feel like because
Yeah, I had mixed. We had mixed feelings on that when we first watched it. We are going to watch it again because
yes,
we're going to cover this. We're going to cover uh,
for a few
for a few
dollars more.
dollars more, and we're going to cover the good, the bad, and the ugly, as well as a bunch of other Western movies eventually. But yeah, we watched that years ago and we weren't thrilled by it. So maybe we'll
Yeah.
have to revisit it
I
and
mean,
see
we
if that.
liked it, but we were kind of like I remember one of the questions we had was like, "What exactly makes the good the good?" And I think the answer is, well, did you watch the other movies? Because that would probably go a long way to answering it. And the answer, is not. But speaking of the trilogy, since we are going to be covering it, Topaz also brought up people like Quentin Tarantino will often say that Lord of the Rings and Star Wars are the two best film trilogies of all time, but he thinks this is probably the best trilogy ever. Oh, and sorry, Quentin Tarantino thinks this is also the best trilogy. He doesn't go for Lord of the Star Wars. Um, we are going to definitely talk about that once we've seen all three together. Um,
Yeah, we'll
we
have more to say about how they all compare once we've
yeah
seen all of them. We'll do like kind of like it's like consider this like a little mini arc, a la the Disney arc, where we'll have a little ranking at the end. But for now, I want to give this movie its due because just as a standalone thing, because I think it's really quite excellent. It's really and it's really fun and charming in a way, especially the spaghetti-ness of the Western is
yes
quite fun with all the dubbing and all the acting and stuff. But there's a lot that this being made by. So I understand that this was a co-production between Italians, Spanish, and Germans. I don't exactly know how that breaks down in terms of like the funding and who the production companies were, but I think broadly you could consider this an Italian film, right?
yeah I would say so, right? Because
Yeah, and I think
all
there's
most of the
something.
actors but Clint Eastwood are Italian. Yeah,
Yeah, oh, you can tell.
yeah.
It's really funny to see a guy who's clearly going nah, 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 with his hands and everything. It's like I'm a Mexican. You have to believe me. It's like okay, if you say so. But
Uh, that
they
is
yeah they
yeah, that
okay,
is
so they
funny.
filmed it in Spain. That's what I thought. Yeah, because I'm like I think there are some regions of Italy that could maybe pass for the West, but Spain much more so.
Well,
Absolutely.
that used to be Greater Italy, back in the good old days.
Well, y- yeah, I suppose you could say that, couldn't you? Um, no, but there's something really interesting that I noticed in this movie because it was made by Italians. There's a lot more religious symbolism and sort of atmosphere hanging over this movie than there is a lot of other westerns that I've seen. American westerns. So that really lent it something kind of special as well. In addition to like the fun, quirky charm of all the dubbing and everything like that, there's something, I don't know, much more Catholic about this movie, you know, in a way that I
Yeah,
find really
I could see
interesting.
that. Yeah. There's I mean, it's just first of all, it's fucking gorgeous, right? Like this is one
Oh
of the
yeah,
best shot this has got to be one of the best shot trilogies maybe of all time, and it's had a lot of influence on the way that people like Quentin Tarantino make his movies, and
sure.
there you could definitely even feel a little bit of Lord of the Rings in this when I was watching it. With the chase where he's riding the horse through the mountains, following that,
Hmm.
right? Like there's so much of that you can capture, which is why I was so disappointed when the 4x3 version started playing. And I was like,
Yeah.
what am I looking at? Why are we doing this? Um, yeah,
It's
but
also really interesting to note how low budget this movie was because I think it was made for $200,000 at the time, which
that's not a lot.
that's not a lot of money. I'm gonna look up actually how much that is in today's money, but
Yeah, I mean, it's a really simple premise, right? Like
about
somebody.
2 million. That
Okay, yeah.
still by today's standards, that's pretty cheap. It's
I
a
mean, if you
fairly
could get
cheap.
something like this made for 2 million a day, I bet you absolutely crush it at the box office.
Yeah, man. I think you
Yeah.
absolutely would. It's almost like this is the kind of stuff that people actually really want to see, even if no one in Hollywood is interested in giving it to them.
Yeah.
I really think that's true. Yeah, and this movie, was a huge hit. I think the successive movies in the trilogy got a lot bigger budgets as a result, which is unsurprising. Yeah, watching this movie in 4x3 should be criminal. Yeah, as soon as it came on, I'm like, this is wrong. Because I already knew ahead of time that these movies are, they're 235 to 1. They're Technoscope, which is an interesting it's a way of filming that isn't used very much anymore, but it's cheaper, which is why they did it. They basically film these movies in two perf, which is like you take the full height of 35 millimeter film and you cut it in half. So basically the film is moving slower through the camera and you use more of the film, you get more film to use essentially, so it's like half as expensive as shooting like anamorphic on 4 perf film. Modern movies sometimes do that when they want that sort of grainier look, like I believe Good Time by the Safdie brothers is shot like that. So was The Sound of Metal, which was a pretty solid movie. Uncut Gems might have been 2 perf as well. I'm not really sure. But if you want to sort of like, because modern film stocks tend to be a lot cleaner than the film stocks that they had back in the day. So if you want that sort of gritty look, that's how a lot of filmmakers go about getting it. So yeah, it has a really distinctive look, sort of like widescreen, but not anamorphic. The colors are really rich. They use a lot of light in a way that like movies just don't do anymore. So it's really refreshing in that regard. I think if a movie like this came out today, it would smash the box office.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I really think so. Well, and one of the things I really liked about it, I didn't really know too much going in except the general type of story that it is, like, sort of mysterious, sort of morally ambiguous man rides into town. In this case, he finds a town that is sort of beset by two rival gangs that are sort of terrorizing the good people that live there, and he sort of pits the two gangs against each other in order to save the town and to sort of like take care of this problem. Then he rides off into the sunset. What I was not expecting actually was like how, compared to like a lot of the movies that are inspired by this kind of story, he's a lot more virtuous in this movie than I would have expected.
Yeah. I
And I
that
like
was
that.
yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah, he's very like the idea of him being morally ambiguous is I don't know, that doesn't feel like a particularly
Apt.
complete, yeah, apt or
Not in
complete
this movie.
reading in this movie. Yeah.
Yeah, so like that's sort of that's what I mean. Like that's what I expected going in, but really he's basically just a hero. He's pretty ruthless when it comes to the gang members, but like I don't know, like that scene when he saves the woman and her husband and they ask him why he did it. I'm like, man, this is really good stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's just so much to like about this movie.
Yeah, yeah, like it really does fall into a similar vein as the Yojimbo Sanjuro, duo, because that character has another similar kind of moral code, right? Where he is a servant of the good, uh, the, ambiguously, right? Like I guess that's really what
Yeah.
the best way, unambiguously and ambiguously at the same time, right? Like he is the hero who is here to like it's kind of like what you want to be when you play a character in Fallout for the first time.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like that's exactly what this is reminded me of. Is like your first
And
playthrough of Fallout New Vegas where you're, trying to, make your decision and it turns out there's not a good choice, so you try to get rid of them all, right? You play them off each other.
yeah.
It's yeah, great stuff, and it follows into, so Sanjuro. You haven't seen that one, but that one ends in a more stark kind of way, that is interesting to think about, where it's made very clear that the samurai is not he doesn't view himself as servant of the moral good, right? Like he doesn't view himself that way. He has more of a morally gray view of himself, and I'm interested in seeing how that translates into the next movie, because in this one he's very much on the good side of things, right? Like there's
Yeah,
not
like, I
much.
expected him to be a bit more, like, self-interested, just, like, it's mostly
Yeah,
because of how many things are downstream from movies like this that have found it more interesting, in their opinion, to have someone who's a bit more self-interested. Like, obviously, there's a bit of, like, a lot of the characters that, Harrison Ford has played in this. There's a little bit of Indiana Jones, there's a little bit of Han Solo, but those they tend to be a lot more, like, self-interested to a degree, varying degrees, obviously, but, like, out for themselves in a sort of way. And so, like, a lot of the things that and especially as you get on, like, into modern times, like, we don't have a lot of these characters that they stumble into this town, they see something horrible, like, happening, and then they're like, "I'm gonna do something about it. I'm gonna, save these people." And, he doesn't even really seem to want the money, which
yeah,
is an
not really. Yeah,
interesting
because he
thing.
gives it away, right? Like he
Yes.
yeah.
And that was a little bit of a surprise watching this movie. I didn't expect that based on everything I'd heard from, like, sort of cultural osmosis about this type of movie. And, like, there's a great moment where he's talking with, Ramon and the other guys, and he's giving the guy his money back, and it's like, "I don't like to take money unless I've earned it." It's like a little dig at Ramon for stealing the gold, which obviously
Yeah.
Ramon doesn't know that he saw. So it's like it's great. It's
Yeah,
just so good.
yeah, it really does. This is also like one of those it's one of those types of movies that makes me see, because I talk a lot about the idea of doing a Kurt Russell John Carpenter trilogy, right? Where like that's a spiritual successor to this sort of movie in its own right as well. Snake Plissken is very much like this kind of character, maybe more self-interested
Yeah,
than this guy, right? But like Jack Burton is a very similar character,
yeah,
turned on its head a little bit. McCready in The Thing, similar kind of character. So I guess it was inevitable that I would love this movie, but it just kind
yeah.
of like you can feel the influence, and like it's the kind of thing that you're craving when you watch anything new lately, right? Like this
Yeah.
is yeah.
Yeah, there's someone else. Speaking of influences, because obviously a lot of things were influenced by this movie, but in terms of, like, in addition to Yojimbo, the obvious inspiration, other things that sort of led into this, like, he feels very much more like a noir protagonist. I think Emperor Goodwin said that in the chat. He feels like a sort of hard boiled detective a little bit, and there's a lot of sneaking around and, like, trying to gather information and sort of, like, figure out what's going on, and then play both sides and sort of play your cards close to the chest. A lot of things that a sort of noir detective might do. He has a sort of, like, kind of rugged sort of, I don't know, prickly exterior and stuff like that. But there's a lot of that in this movie as
Yeah,
well,
well,
which I
and then
wasn't
like, what's
expecting.
the thing that he said when when we talked about Dirty Harry? We touched on Clint Eastwood, sort of his understanding of his character, the hero's character, and why young men connect with it so well, and so so much that so that they're willing to like go and see it. That they were such that these movies were such big
Yeah, I
successes,
don't
right?
remember exactly what he said, but there's definitely this sort of self-reliant man who has his own code and his own principles that he sticks to and everything
Hmm.
like that. And
Who does
that's the
who does good for the little people, who's he's self-reliant, he's self-sufficient, and he's cool, right? Like that's
yeah.
the other thing, is that he's
I
cool
mean,
under pressure, he has his
yeah.
solutions, and he's just like, I mean, one of the very first things that we see him do in this movie is just cap four guys right, like instantly, because they
Yeah.
shot at his mule, which is you know it's awesome.
Well, then the other thing, this is obviously there many things have done this since, including a lot of Tarantino movies, but like he's just like the quickest shot in the West kind of trope,
Oh yeah.
where he's just like an unbelievably good, gunslinger. And that's fun too. And one of the things that I really appreciate about this movie, because this movie does feel like, oh, it's this trope you're familiar with, it's that trope you're familiar with, but they're all executed very well in this movie, and they all sort of tie together in a very cohesive way. So, like the idea of him being just like an expert gunslinger and really quick draw and everything, it's fun and it's cool, right? He makes him kind of an exceptional elite, character, but also they really put him through the ringer, especially in the back half of this movie.
Yeah.
Because there's always a danger in having a character who's just that competent and cool that like the victory will feel a little unearned because he's already so great. But they really do make sure that he gets the shit kicked out of him in the back half of this movie to really make you feel like he's been through hell, right? And that'll have great, symbolism for the movie as well. That like he literally has to be like snuck away in a coffin, all that sort of stuff. It's great. Speaking while we're speaking broadly about things that were inspired by and inspired this movie, I couldn't help but notice when he's in that mine shaft, like working on his armor, that
Iron Man.
Iron Man
Oh, for sure,
clearly
yeah.
stole
Iron
or
Man
stole. Took a
borrowed
couple of like
from this
direct
for
shots of that,
sure.
and I'm like, oh, that's fun. I had
Well,
no idea.
when he's working on the strength for his hand, and he's hammering, the steel plate with the hammer to,
Yeah,
get his grip back. It's like,
yeah.
oh, I would like instantly, I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah, there's
It's
Iron Man.
almost the exact shot in a
Yeah,
really fun, yeah, I'm
it's
like, "That's
awesome,
cool."
man.
Yeah, I really like that.
And it goes a long way to explaining why that first Iron Man is so enduring, right? Like why that
Yeah,
movie
compared
is
to a
so
lot of
good.
what followed, yeah, that
Yeah.
one really had something. Um, Another thing that I was thinking before we get into the specifics and sort of go through the movie beat by beat, the other thing that I really, really liked about it is because obviously we've talked a little bit how there's like a really interesting connection between like cowboys, gunslingers, and samurai, right? There's also a connection with like medieval knights and those type of characters, the sort of wandering medieval knight. Like that's like, St. George and the Dragon is he just sort of comes upon a town that is dealing with this problem with the dragon and he
Yeah.
solves it for them essentially, right? And so he is like a wandering soldier of the good, sort of like coming upon small towns dealing with these problems and helping them out and then riding off into the sunset. And so there's like an obvious connection there in this movie. The first time I've really seen a western do something like this actually incorporates a little bit of that medieval knight imagery with the suit of armor and
Yeah.
like not just having it there as a sort of target practice and set up for all the stuff about shooting for the heart and everything, but also he incorporates a bit of that armor himself later. I'm like, damn, this is really good. And that's where it feels like perhaps the fact that, this is made by Europeans instead of Americans, there's a bit more of that sort of connection, you know, to
To a yeah,
antiquity
to an end.
and
Yeah, yeah.
medieval era sort of happening here. Like all of the music, by the way, the music is just tremendous in this film. I absolutely love it. But a lot of the music feels kind of like old hymns, right? And then a lot of them, they're very like kind of melancholy and tragic, solemn, if you will. And then they sort of end on that major chord, which feels very much like an old fashioned Catholic hymn. So there's just a lot of that sort of energy permeating through the whole thing. So in addition to just like cool guy wearing a cool poncho, does cool badass things. There's a lot of great, I don't know, imagery around death and, like tying like the medieval knight to the modern cowboy. Like that's really cool. I
Yeah.
really love all that sort of stuff. I'd
Yeah,
like to see
absolutely.
more of that kind of stuff. I'd
There's
love.
a chivalric code at work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is something
Yeah,
that
because
like
he
yeah.
saves the woman. Because another thing that's really interesting about this movie is that you see that beautiful woman at the beginning, and you kind of think like, oh, maybe he's going to get the girl eventually. If you don't know anything about where the story's going, but then ultimately he ends up saving her, not so she could be a prize for him at all, right? Just because it's the right thing to do, and because it reminds him of someone in his life who went through hell in a similar sort of way. You know, and so that's really interesting as well. Speaking of that
Yeah,
sort of like chivalric code sort of thing, he just sees this happening and he's like, nope, can't stand for that.
absolutely. Yeah. That Yeah, that would kind of surprised me a little bit because I didn't remember if that was, part of, part and parcel of it. But it does even have like the town is almost structured like a feudal system. And I guess this is lent a little bit from the samurai movie influence, right? Where it's, the there's the feudal structure at work in a way, right?
Yeah.
The vassal has to give his wife up to the lord because as a
Yeah.
hostage because he lost he lost a card game or something like
Yeah.
that.
Well, that's what's kind of fun about it is that like the sort of feudal sort of tyranny, not that all feudal systems are equally tyrannical, but the sort of one that develops here, just kind of, it's the kind of thing that like you can imagine just sort of forming organically in a sort of frontier town, kind of far away from, a more rigorous, civilized, law-based society. So like out here, out on the fringes, out on the wilderness, it's like things have developed a sort of like feudal, sort of pseudo-feudal structure, which is really interesting. And that's why I think, if you wanted to do something like Macbeth in the Old West, you definitely
Oh yeah,
could, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
Where like someone is basically the de facto king, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And Wasserman, I saw, said earlier that she watched the third Back to the Future movie before knowing about these and knowing even who Clint Eastwood was. And same, actually. I
Yeah.
watched the third Back to the Future as a kid before I knew anything about these. But when we were watching this, my girlfriend's dad was like, I can't remember. Is this the one where that Back to the Future 3 sort of like parodied or, drew from? And I couldn't remember exactly what he was, bringing referencing until I saw him, filing down the piece of metal. And I was like, oh yeah, it's this one. This is the one. Yep,
Yeah.
it's definitely this. Yeah, it's so. Should we? Are we
Yeah, well,
going
the movie
into like an
starts with a
actual
very,
breakdown, or
very
what are we?
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll go through roughly in order. We'll jump around. Um, but the first of all, the movie starts with a really great overture from is it Ennio Morricone? I don't actually know how to pronounce it. I've only ever seen it written. Uh, Absolutely tremendous score for this movie. But it starts with a great overture and a title sequence. Can I just say I miss these
Oh yeah,
very much.
dude, the title sequence for this is so fucking cool too.
It's
Like,
awesome.
yeah, it's
It's really
so
so it
good.
has, like, a little bit of that sort of '60s, mid-century modern kind of almost Saul Bass-like, um, with the use of, like, silhouettes and, the striking colors and everything and the way they sort of cut in and out. But, yeah, it's really, really great. I really like this intro a lot, and it really sets the tone for the whole movie. And I miss when movies had that sort of thing. We don't really do that as much anymore, unfortunately. But it's sort of this movie is really interesting because there are things about it that are very modern, sort of like at the cutting edge of 1964. But also there's a lot that feels like we're still connected to the way epics and movies like that were made in the decades prior, and also the story itself feels connected to sort of like a deep well of tradition and epics and heroic storytelling. You know what I mean? It
Yeah,
feels like it has stylistically very modern, but not separated or cleaved off from everything that came before it. And so it really does kind of have the best of everything as far as I'm concerned. Because I love the way this movie's shot and I really love this intro. It's great.
Absolutely. More in like more intros for movies like this, more movies like this in general, would be ideal, right? But like the intro
Yeah.
sequences, there's something like the lost art of that is really like it is kind of a shame that we don't do it anymore. That we're so
Yeah.
addicted to like the cold open because we have to save time. Because like the title sequence, there's something about like when you turn on any movie that has a title sequence like this, or like a James Bond, one of the old James Bond movies that has a title sequence,
Yeah.
that plays for the credits, that like it really just kind of it gears you up for what's about to happen, right? Like this is going to be an adventure thing. This is going to like it kind of hits, man. It just hits in a really
Yeah,
good way.
especially for movies.
Yeah.
Especially for movies. Like, I
I
don't
was
know.
watching, what was it? We turned on Ben-Hur the other day. Uh
Okay.
and Ben-Hur opens with an overture, which
Yeah.
I is just like another thing that is like, back when movies were kind of more connected to an operatic sort of tradition.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
I miss them.
yeah.
I okay, because this I called it an overture. I don't know that it really technically is, but it's a great piece of music and a great title sequence. But like the old-fashioned sort of operatic sort of tradition of where the overture is a sort of like musical, it has all the themes kind of interwoven together. So it basically not just as like a tone setting thing, but it's like here are all the major themes you're going to hear throughout the movie stated at the beginning. That way, when they come up in the movie, you already kind of have a familiarity with them. And so, I don't know, they just hit that much harder. And I really like that. I really think something's lost when you don't have that anymore. Obviously, like there's an overture quality to like the intro to the title crawl in Star Wars. But even that, it doesn't include all of the themes that are going to
Yeah.
come later. The way like something like Ben-Hur, the way most movie musicals, from the 50s and before, they would do that as well. And so like you kind of it kind of seamlessly moves through all the themes that you're going to hear. And so then when they occur in the movie, you're already like, oh, it's that thing,
Yeah.
I don't. There's just something kind of magical about that, and I would like to
There's a
bring that
comment
back.
in the chat that says that some call this the first postmodern film. Now that is pretty interesting, right? Because like
I
I could see where that would come into play. Now, postmodern postmodernism as as a thing, I obviously I have a little bit of a visceral
well,
reaction to that, but
I
I can
don't
see
know.
what you're getting at.
It doesn't feel like we're trying to like I don't
It
know
doesn't feel like we're trying to
deconstruct
deconstruct or
anything. No,
break things down. I
no,
can
not
see
really,
that
and
this
it
is
doesn't
more of
really
like it's
feel
like
like
we're breaking with certain traditions in a maybe like because it's not quite the operatic sort of film the way that Ben-Hur or the Ten Commandments or something like that is, but then again it also isn't really, it's not really in the same vein as that. Right, like it's more of a a down to earth kind of story than a biblical adaptation, as much as it is a Saint George and the Dragon kind of story. So
yeah, I don't
yeah.
know. I guess it really depends on what you mean by postmodern. I don't want to get too in the weeds on that, but I think a lot of times when I hear people describe things as postmodern, that there's a sort of um like a sort of like reimagining or deconstruction or a sort
Western.
of subversion or something ironic about it. And I really don't feel much of that in this movie. I feel like that it's you know that it incorporates a lot of these sort of modern stylistic choices to tell a story that it feels very much as a movie made in 1964 can feel like an old-fashioned story of a sort of knight. Like I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you've seen more actually of the older westerns prior to like westerns prior to this than I have. I think because you've seen The
Yeah,
Searchers, and some of those other John Wayne ones. How
and High
different
Noon and all that sort of
in High Noon? Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
how different does this feel from those?
Well, stylistically, it's very different. There's a lot that he brings to the table in this movie that you don't get as much. Okay, so a lot of the a lot of the westerns from like the 40s and the 50s, just in terms of how they're presented a bit more like a stage play. Like the camera is wider and further back, and we see a lot of like action and reaction in the same shot. We're sort of like watching from a slight distance, almost like it's a stage play, right? And so you don't get a lot of these like hyper close-ups that he really likes to do. Most famously, obviously, in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, but there are quite a few of them here as well that you didn't see as much in earlier westerns. And so basically, like a lot of the things he does in this movie are like kind of stylistic and fun and like a little exaggerated, like I just saw it on the screen, but like wide angle close-ups of people's feet, they sort of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
exaggerate distance and things like that, you know, all that sort of stuff, like, because you mentioned The Lord of the Rings, like The Lord of the Rings, I don't know if people always appreciate just how stylistically kind of gonzo those movies are
Yeah,
in a
no, they
good way.
really don't, because Peter Jackson is a weirdo. Is like the
Yeah.
best way of describing it. He
Yeah,
started
but like
off with weird
yeah.
movies, and he keeps making them, and I love that. I love him for that. It's one of the things about Lord of the Rings that makes it so different. Is that stylistically, its film grammar is very on point. It's like all of its I's and T's are dotted and crossed, but it is
Yeah.
very odd. Like there are
Yeah.
some really
You know,
out
the
there choices that you
Yeah,
wouldn't.
and so this movie is a bit more like you see a lot more of this movie in like Tarantino, whereas like previous westerns they didn't do as much of this. They might play with shadow in a really interesting sort of way. Like cuz first of all, movies back in this era used a lot more hard lighting instead of soft diffuse lighting, which is what everyone's obsessed with nowadays. No one wants hard shadows anymore, but it's like shadows are cool,
Yeah, man.
man.
Shadows
Shadows
are
are
really cool.
awesome.
If they were good enough for Akira Kurosawa, they should be good
Yeah.
enough for you. Like,
Yeah, and so, I feel like a lot of what you see in this movie compared to previous movies isn't really so much a change in subject matter as it is like how it's filmed and presented and like aesthetically, you know, like you wouldn't use music quite in this way.
yeah,
There's something very distinctive about the music in this movie and the stylistic elements. But there's westerns before this. They weren't all like the cookie cutter, like perfectly good noble sheriff who deals with the bad guy. There's a lot of sort of morality play happening there, as there is in this movie. So it doesn't really feel too different in that regard. But obviously, there's a sort of archetype that develops as a result of this movie, of this sort of Clint Eastwood Western hero where he's quieter, he says less, and he has a sort of like I don't know, sort of like grizzled, like, prickly exterior. You're not really sure ultimately whether he's good or bad until you see what he does, Because this movie, when he starts, he's kind of observing the situation. He's kind of caught in the middle of these rival gangs. You have a sense that what he saw at the beginning with like the crying child and all that, like has affected him, but like you don't really know what he's going to do until he does it. You don't really ultimately know whether he's good or bad until like what you see him do at the end. That feels a little different,
okay,
you know, where he's more mysterious
yeah,
than a lot of Western heroes before this would be.
interesting. Okay,
I don't think, but honestly, it doesn't feel as different as you'd think. I just think he's having more like stylistic fun, I would say. Like I'm just watching the trailer as it loops
yeah.
right now, and like the way he stages things and the way he like when the barrel is falling towards that guy. Like we have snap zooms in this movie. You
Oh,
don't get
that yeah,
snap zooms.
old
You don't
west,
get
yeah,
snaps
old
in
western
the
ones, yeah,
old Western movies. You don't get stuff like that. Things that sort of exaggerate um as much as old movies, they sort of look like they're trying to go for realism to an extent, but really they're sort of like they look like plays. They're lit like
yeah,
plays would
yeah,
be.
yeah,
We're getting closer. We're not there obviously, but we're getting closer to like 70s sort of
yeah.
gritty.
And
A lot of
almost like there's a
zooms.
lot of natural lighting in this one too, so I'm sure Roger Deakins was influenced by this stuff as well. Like they're not dragging out. Yeah,
Well, for the daytime stuff,
yeah,
yeah. But for like interior stuff,
Oh yeah, no, they
there's a lot
blast
of
it with a lot. Yeah.
yeah, they blast with a lot of light, and it looks great, man. I think probably my favorite like looking sequence in the whole movie. We'll talk about the story at some point, I promise. But my favorite looking sequence is when he first goes to. Oh God, I forget their names. But there's the
It's the
Ramon.
Rojos and the Roja. Yeah, wait, the Rojos are Ramon and his brother. They're the worst of them. And then who are the others? The Benjamins? Is that it?
Baxter.
The
Baxter.
Baxters. That's it.
Yes. He goes to the Baxters, and there's the widow there in black, and she's kind of walking into like the deep maroon, kind of
Oh
dark
yeah,
burgundy house, which I love the design of that whole house. It's really, really great. But she's walking through the house and she's going upstairs, and the music is doing this great, like horror rising atonal type thing, something like you'd hear in The Shining, frankly. And I'm listening to it. I'm like, huh, this feels like a horror movie. What's going on? But you're not really sure what you're meant to be scared of or suspicious of, even. And she kind of goes into the mirror, and that we're following her all in this big one shot, and then she goes to get the lamp and the hand reaches out and grabs her, right?
yeah,
Like that whole thing, it's just beautiful. The lighting is excellent. The sort of camera movement, everything feels like it's cooking. Feels very there's something kind of Spielbergy about that
yeah,
little
yeah.
sequence, these compound moves and sort of tying them all together. That's what feels kind of modern and fresh about this movie compared to the westerns that came before it.
Yeah, I was gonna say like it doesn't go all the way through on the trailer, but when it loops through, when he rides in underneath the noose, and then the camera kind of like dollies with him as he rides up on his mule to the fountain, and then we see the town. So like we're getting that feels very Spielbergy,
Yeah.
in its very basic form, right?
Yeah.
um there's a lot of camera movement like that, structuring scenes so that we start in one place and end in another composition, very
Yeah.
seamlessly put them together. It's very
Wide
tight.
angle
Yeah,
close-ups, which you didn't see a lot of back in the day, and also zooms, like I mentioned, that you didn't see a lot of before. You know, someone said, um, it took film a comparatively long time to develop a distinct visual language beyond we put on a play and recorded it. And I
yeah,
think there's something true about that, but I don't want to denigrate the sort of like theatrical aspect of like film, especially because like in the modern day, that's all gone
yeah.
now. And it's like, no, we lost something actually. I think a lot of my favorite movies are at this perfect sort of like zenith between old-fashioned theatrical sensibilities and a more distinctively I don't know. There's the two things. There's the very exaggerated stylistic stuff like we've been talking about, and then also just sort of a more of an attention on realism. And I think there's like a perfect blend, kind of like the way Jurassic Park blends every type of visual effect you can imagine to
Yeah,
create a sort of, where there's CGI and there's animatronics and there's miniatures and there's yeah, all that sort of stuff. When you use all of those tools available, it just feels like, perfect, And I feel like there are movies sort of anywhere from,
Lord of the Rings had
yeah,
something similar, right? Yeah,
and honestly, frankly, anywhere from like the late 50s to like the early 2000s, where it feels like there are a lot of movies in that whole range where it's like they combine the best of all of these worlds. Because I really think what's lost when you like separate yourself from the sort of theatrical tradition is like this sort of is lighting, basically.
yeah. That's what you miss. Yeah, that's
That's
the
the
main
big
thing that
thing.
we've
Lighting and
separated.
blocking. Lighting
Yeah,
and blocking is the other
blocking.
big one.
Yeah,
Because there's
hitting
really good
marks.
blocking in this movie. Maybe not quite as that's maybe the one thing, not the one thing, but it's one thing that Yojimbo definitely has over this movie, because Akira Kurosawa movies in general
Are
have
just
like
like, yeah,
unbelievably
unreal.
good blocking. But this movie does too. There's a lot of great staging of people all at varying distances, where like there's one person who's kind of closer to the frame off to the left, but in the background everyone's sort of staged in a way that feels natural but like looks like a screensaver at the same time,
Yeah.
you know.
Or a painting. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
when we were
yeah.
talking about high and low, how, the camera will move on a line, and there, people will all take places, because Feels natural because they're trying not to intrude on the conversation that's happening between the
Yeah,
other two characters, but now we've got these shadows in the front and the light in the background, and it's just,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, he does a great job here with that as well, but I mean, maybe to a lesser extent than Kurosawa does, but it's still really good, you know?
Yeah, and that's what I think that's why I think this movie's really cooking with gas because it has a bit of all of that, you know? There are parts that feel like where it's useful and where it's serving the story, we're drawing upon the more theatrical stylistic sensibilities, and where we want to really punctuate certain moments, we're experimenting with things that you would never have done 20 years ago. You know what I mean? But that really give you something fresh and new. That makes certainly, like those extreme close-ups that he really likes to do. Those are very intense in a good way.
Yeah, and
Really bring
there's
you in.
a lot of the actors in this movie just like by virtue of the way that they're lit and everything, but like also the fact that he, clearly I think had a penchant for casting these types. They have really great eyes. Like
Yeah.
yeah, like Clint Eastwood's are that kind of greenish look, like he's got a lot of, laugh lines around his eyes, maybe more like, grumpy lines if you want to call it that. But then they've got that, the one brother who's got the bright blue eyes who's always like
Oh
laughing.
yeah.
It's a
Well, when
he
you're not
knows they're
casting
really
people,
interesting, right? You're not casting people who can act, you're casting people who can look the part. Because like you're gonna dub them over anyway, so what does it
yeah,
matter, right? But like, yeah,
yeah,
they're all really interesting, unique features, and it's kind of one of those things that makes you realize where Tarantino gets the idea of making the villains also as iconic as the like in big bold letters iconic, right? Italicized iconic. Like
yeah,
the girl in the schoolgirl in Kill Bill Volume 1, right? Like we give her this sort of like comic booky character to her, but it's like really interesting. Like more than the design, right? Like we're looking at design in the character, the casting and the character costuming and everything like that. And this one,
Poncho in this movie,
the poncho, the
unbelievable.
dude with the dude with the blue, the brother with the blue eyes, who's kind of dressed like a mariachi, like
Yeah,
or like the guy from Coco, you know,
yeah,
like a bigger hat than everybody else. Like there's a lot of really like it tells you a lot about who that character is without having to do a lot of work building the backstory for him. Like you
yeah,
just give them these visual cues that kind of just like subconsciously make you go, I know what kind of person that is.
yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I see that.
All
Yeah,
very distinctive, like a lot of great character design through the casting and the costuming, like there's the big burly guy that wears, the sort of bullets
iconic
in
like
an X
Ironheart.
across his. Huh?
So Daily Dose said iconic like Ironheart in the chat. Yes. Yeah, they
It's
really did a good job with
just like
that.
it.
Boy, every just like her.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I'm just like when you look at this movie, it really does feel like we're doing it all. Right?
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of scenes of people talking that are all in these master wide shots where they're moving the blocking around. We just hang in one wide shot the whole time, kind of like we're watching a play. And then there's others where we're quickly cutting around between extreme close-ups. So it's like wherever it's useful to the story, we're sort of like pulling from every possible way you can shoot a movie. And that's what I really like. That's what I really like when you're deciding how to make those choices based on how it serves the movie, not just because that's how you do things nowadays.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's talk about the story.
Well, we'll talk about the story, but also I just saw Wasserman saying this thing about watching spaghetti westerns first means that, or makes it like difficult for her to watch real, quote unquote, real westerns, with some exceptions. And I kind of understand what you're getting at there, especially, I mean, like, given what you've told me a little bit about, like, yeah, I mean, I've seen Stagecoach, right? And that's a good movie, but it's not hitting for me like this one was. But one of the things that I'd be really interested in examining at some point is the original True Grit versus the Coen Brothers remake of True Grit, because I love that book. It's one of my favorite books ever, top 5 all time. But given the fact that like it's a John Wayne Western, I do wonder how much of it in the original iteration draws more on things like The Searchers or Shane or something like that, as opposed to the Coen brothers drawing on, the influences that this movie and the rest of the Dollars
Well,
trilogy passed down, you know?
yeah, I would say the Coen brothers' True Grit feels more like an old school western than it does a spaghetti western.
It's been a
It's
while since
it's
I've seen it, so I won't
it's
I
a lot
wouldn't
more
yeah.
grounded, it's less flashy. The spaghetti westerns tend to have like flash and pizzazz.
Yeah.
you know, they tend to be cooler. If you want the cool factor, a lot of the spaghetti westerns will hit harder.
Okay.
Typically, yeah, they're obviously exceptions. Um, that's one of the big differences, honestly, because there's plenty of old fashioned westerns that have like really interesting sort of moral dimensions to them.
Yeah.
There's like it's a lot about the law, obviously, as one could imagine.
I feel
We talk,
like Gunman's Walk is a more traditional, like,
yeah,
West, yeah,
I
and
would say
I
so.
really
And it
like
was
that.
written by the same
Yeah.
guy who did The Searchers, and that movie's really really great too. But it's not as cool.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't have the cool factor necessarily. Sometimes it can be like relatively slow, but sometimes that works really well in one of those movies' favor. There's kind of like a, I don't know. There's a slow meditative quality to some of them. You know.
Yeah. All right, so the story. On to the
Yeah.
story. Wandering lone gunman comes into town, and the town. The first thing he sees in the first shot we encounter, really, of the town is a little kid sneaking in a window and then getting chased out and shot at by a couple of banditos, you could call them.
These are some bad hombres.
Just some bad hombres. Um, and he sees a beautiful woman in the window, and he smiles at her, and she kind of like gives him a like ugh, and closes the window, and he's disappointed. He's like, oh
Not just
man,
that, not just in the window, but like kind of behind bars. She's in a cage, right? She like we don't really know the full context yet, but we'll eventually learn that she has been sort of taken from her husband and from her child by the head of this gang, right? So
yeah,
they make sure like his little fortified, you know, house or whatever that she's stuck in, it's got little bars on the windows, right? So she can't escape. And so he comes upon this. He sees these bad hombres being very bad hombres indeed to this poor child who is clearly dubbed by an adult, and an adult,
mama, mama.
an adult who is clearly trying to affect a child's wails. But it's very funny.
It is.
Um,
It is
Not
very.
very successful, I would say, but it does make me laugh a lot. Um, they're kicking the kid. They're like shooting at it to kind of scare it away. They're not trying to
It
kill him, but the kid.
the kid, yeah,
Um, And so he sees this and he's like, huh, that's not good. But we don't really, there's not a lot of interiority here. It's just we see his face and it's kind of like almost like a neutral mask where you can't quite tell what he's thinking. And then as he's wandering through town, he sees a noose hanging on like a dead tree. There's a lot of images of death constantly throughout this. Obviously, it's a very dry, arid landscape, so that sort of lends something to. I think later at one point, the old man he meets in the saloon describes the town as a cemetery. Now, there's
yes,
a cemetery in town or just out of town, um, but there's just like the town is dead essentially. The town has been like I don't know strangled to death by crime essentially, and so you don't want to stay here. You're gonna like the only way to make money here is through killing essentially, and so like he sees all these images of death and tyranny and all that sort of stuff. And by the way, like the architecture, which is obviously very Spanish and not at all old Western, it reminded me a lot of Star Wars. And I'm like, oh, okay,
yeah,
that's why everything in Star Wars, especially on Tatooine, looks like that. It's because of movies like this. Like, that's kind of fun.
yeah.
So he's
Mos like
riding.
Cantina.
Yeah, exactly. You'll never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. That's this town. So he's riding through town, and eventually, he comes upon the Baxter gang. He doesn't know who
Oh,
they are yet, but three ne'er-do-wells hanging out outside their, I think it's like an inn, like a hotel, right? Isn't that what they're holed up in? That's what it feels like anyway. There's a
yeah,
saloon and there's a
like
bar in there.
like a saloon, yeah, tavern, like the what would you bordello? Is that what you would call it in Old West terms? Like
I
the
don't know.
place where all the
I
whores
don't.
are, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, one of
And
those.
so they see him, and he's riding on his horse, and there's some bad hombres as well, and so they kind of like give him some grief, and then they start shooting at his horse's feet to sort of like scare him off as well. And he goes riding, and then he catches on to that post. He's just
Yeah.
hanging there.
And like the old man is watching him. He goes, "Hello," just gives him a nice nonchalant little hello. Um,
Yeah,
One of the things that we see too, also, right, in this sequence, is that the coffin, the Undertaker's business is booming, and another movie that we talked about recently came to mind as clearly influenced by this, Van Helsing.
yeah.
There's a little bit of that. The Undertaker plays the dual in that movie, plays the dual role of the bell ringer and the Undertaker in this movie as well. And probably could have been leveraged a little better by Van Helsing if this movie is to be its model. I think
Oh, yeah. I think yeah. I think you could say
we
that
could
for sure.
easily say that. Yeah. Um, Still, proper terminology is thought menagerie.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the Gen Z version of this movie. That you know what? I feel like we could make that,
it's the cow house, where the cows live.
We just make Andrew Tate the hero,
Yeah, no, thank you.
smoking a cigar, bald, walking the way he walks. Uh,
Now we're really in the postmodern
yeah,
Western territory here. And so he comes across the man who runs the cantina. A bit, as someone mentioned in chat already, every business seems to be dead essentially, except for the Undertaker and guns and drugs and the whorehouse, right? So it's
yeah,
just Vice has sort of strangled everything else to death. And so he goes into the inn and I'm sorry, the cantina, and he meets the local old man, played by an Italian pretending to be a Mexican. I must say I enjoy so much. There's a lot of that in this movie, and it's really fun. I love the Italians pretending to be Mexicans. It's very funny to me.
yes, I
I find it
enjoy that
very
as well.
enjoyable and charming. Um,
Italians doing Mexican face, bring it back. More of that,
that's
please.
great. And so basically, the old man in the tavern is giving him the rundown of the town because he doesn't know too much about it, and he's telling him basically like, yeah, we got the two gangs, right? And this is the only way you can make money here. If you're not interested in doing that, you should get out, kind of thing, because you don't want no business here. This town's trouble, essentially.
Yeah.
And
I
so
like the way that they do the exposition too, right? Is that like he comes in to get something to eat and drink, right? And the guy is kind of giving him he's like, you walked into the wrong place, man. Like this is not where you want to be." And so he goes upstairs, right? He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go get the lay of the land," and he goes up, and it's in any other context, it might be kind of clunky, right? But he goes up to get a bird's eye view of it, and as he's like, "Yeah, I want to get a look at the town from up high," right? And when he goes up to get a look at the town from up high, now we know everything we need to know, right? There's one gang that lives over there. There's one gang that lives over there. One of them sells guns. The other one sells, liquor and everything like that, right? And that's the only two way. And they kill each other. That's the way you make money in this town, right?
the exact
It's
line, because it's really good, is things always look different from higher up.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. So he goes up to get that, get that bird's eye view of things. I mean, it's really it's nice and simple. It tells you everything you need to know,
Yeah.
and now you're ready to go. Like
Well, yeah, speaking of, like, everything about this movie is very simple and effective in a way that, like,
yeah,
pointing out the symbolism feels, like, almost obvious, but it's
yeah,
all working very coherently. For example, Jay Jameson says also making sport of the children really sums up the whole town. There's nobody to protect any decency. Yes, exactly, and everything about the town is fruitless. You know what I
yes,
mean? There's a child, like the one child you see in the entire town is being like tormented, right? And like treated like dirt, right? Like there's a hostility towards anything that's decent and actually provides, you know, for the good that actually is self-sustaining, right? Because basically, like the only industries here are vice industries, and it's killing the town essentially, and it's killing anything that can actually produce anything of value. And that's like obvious in their sort in how they treat children. It's the only child we see in the whole movie, if memory serves. And so like their hostility to children in the future is sort of another symbolic thing happening there.
It's a fucking Kyler 3500 says Hispanics would later get retribution on the Italian community in Godfather 3 when Andy Garcia played an Italian and Sofia Coppola attempted to play a non-autistic woman.
Very good. Yeah, so he gets a lay of the land, and there's that line that's going to come up again where it's like, you have the Rojos and you have the Baxters and you have me right in the middle, right?
Yep.
And then he goes off, and the first thing he does is he rides up to the Baxters and he's like, "Hey, now I know you guys didn't mean what you were doing earlier. You're just playing around, but see, my mule doesn't know that."
Yeah.
He doesn't understand. I know, of course, obviously. And like I just love this little speech he gives. It's so funny. The way he approaches it.
Like, now, if you would just
You see, he got all
apologize.
riled. Yeah, it's like you see, he got all riled up when you men fired those shots at his feet. He's like, "See, I understand you were just playing around, but the mule, he just doesn't get it. Of course, if you were all to apologize." And then they laugh like, "Ha ha, that's a good joke." And he goes, "I don't think it's nice
I
you
don't think that's
laughing.
very fun. Yeah, I don't think it's nice you laughing.
You see,
That's
my mule don't like people laughing. He gets the crazy idea you're laughing at him. Now, if you apologize, like I know you're going to, I might convince him that you really didn't mean it."
Dude, it's
Ah,
so
it's
good. It's
it's
it's so fucking good.
yeah.
Uh, I
Yeah,
I
and
love
so
it.
and then, of course, like, then there's this great, and this will be, like, a recurring thing. I think maybe it only happens one more time in the movie, but when there's, like, a tense standoff like this, there's that great, like, really high-pitched kind of string drone that's, like, so high on the violin that it feels like it's gonna snap at any moment, and it's just like we're holding out this long, like, really high, really kinda grating, sort of harsh sound, and then he does the quick draw, shoots them all before they can even get a shot off thing. Very awesome. Very cool. Fuck
Yeah.
those guys.
Yeah.
But what like it
The other thing
Go ahead.
that's very interesting, right, is that it's a mule, not a horse. Like
Mhm.
like the hybrid of the two animals generally considered to be, right, like stronger, more resilient than one or the other, but also it can't reproduce, right? So it's
Yeah,
like it's kind of there to just like there's something there, right? There's something very
yeah,
interesting about the choice to have him riding a mule as opposed to coming in on on a horse or anything else,
sure.
right? It's a
Well,
very
and the other thing,
smart
yeah,
choice.
right, because, like, okay, if he's riding on, like, a noble steed or whatever, right?
Yeah,
Like a really beautiful, very, kind of noble, elegant horse, then, that sort of what we need to do, and one of the things that works really well about this movie is that when you're first watching it, you don't really know whether he's going to be a good person or not. You don't know anything about him. Really, he doesn't talk too much about himself. We don't really know what his intentions are. There's all this imagery of like being caught in the middle, right? Or being sort of ambiguous, and you're not really sure whether he's going to do good for the town or not. Like, and so the mule has a sort of image of ambiguity there as well, which is kind of interesting. And I also really like, in terms of what it says about his character, that he doesn't immediately go confront those guys.
yeah,
He waits, he goes in, he gets the lay of the land, he figures out who they are, he figures out that they're scumbags, and then he goes to do this, right? He doesn't just do it immediately in like a sort of like fit of anger, if you will, about what they did, but he's like gonna go confront those guys, right? Because he knows they're bad news, right? He
yeah,
knows they're part of the two factions destroying this town, so he feels less compunction about just killing these guys, right? And so
yeah,
there's obviously some moral ambiguity there in that he's like, you know, he kills these guys. Obviously, he knows that they're terrible people, right? But they haven't really done, you know, do they deserve to die for what they did to him? I don't know. But he's going to just kill them anyway because he has a kind of like ruthless
yeah.
intolerance of this kind of uh
Because they're NPCs and they have spoken out of turn in which is basically what I do when playing those types of games in general. So you know what? There you go. Yeah, like, I remember when I was talking to you about how I was playing the Outer Worlds and I did that first quest, and the company guy told me that I like told me off, like he insulted me in some kind of way, so I just shot him and then ended up fighting my way out of the whole town.
yeah.
Which is like, yeah, that's kind of exactly what I want out of this type of movie is the guy to do some stuff like basically like he's gonna, yeah,
That's the
that's the
cool
cool
factor
factor.
for
That's
sure. And
yeah.
also I like that he goads them into drawing first.
Yeah. Because
A
he
to like
knows that he can outdraw them and outshoot
yeah,
them. Yeah.
yeah. And so yeah,
It's
I really like that because those guys are fuck those guys.
yeah.
You know, and it's great. And then so after he shoots them, the sheriff runs out and he's
Renegade.
like, "I saw the whole thing. You killed all four of them."
Yeah.
He's like,
Who are you? I like that. I fucking love that line. He's just like, he comes out, he's like, I saw the whole thing. You killed all four of them. You'll be prosecuted. And he kind of just he immediately just turns the gun on him and is just like, yeah, who are you? Like,
"Yeah, well, if you're the sheriff, you better get these men underground." And then he just walks away.
yeah,
Because the other thing that's great about that, because we don't know much about this guy's backstory, right? But we do get the sense that like this is not the first time he's seen this sort of thing before, right? So he knows that that sheriff is worthless,
yeah,
because he's allowed this town to become what it is. He's like, oh, yeah, right, the sheriff. Like you're gonna fucking do anything about it.
yeah.
Like, but he's like, you better get these men underground, sheriff. Like as if like that's the only thing
That he's
he
good for, yeah.
that he's good for. And I'm like, ooh, that's good. And also, there's a
I
great
mean,
like,
and like
yeah,
it
like
is
I'm
kind of
the
true, right? Because like the whole the town is basically the coffin maker is the one who's profiting the most, right? So it is sort of like, yeah, you're the sheriff. This is your job. Like, you live in a town where burying people is the primary, like the only way to make money, basically.
yeah, yeah. And it's also like a bit of the like maybe I'm the new law in town. Like you
Yeah,
don't need to say it explicitly, but maybe that's exactly what's happening here. Because
judgment from on
you've
high.
betrayed the
Yeah.
law exactly. So then he goes to meet with the Rojos, right? Because
Yes.
he is intent on pitting these two factions against each other, which is great. I love that. Obviously, that's the main thing in Yojimbo as well. I think so. I saw Yojimbo quite a long time ago now, and so maybe this isn't entirely true, but I got the feeling that Yojimbo makes it a little bit more clear, like how what jobs he's doing for them and what services he's providing and the ruses and how he's tricking them. This one was a little bit like they have whole movie has like kind of a less is more approach in terms of the exposition and the dialogue. And from what I understand, that is almost entirely due to Clint Eastwood, who there's some quote. Actually, let me see if I can find the quote because I thought it was really interesting. Fistful of dollars because he was talking about how exposition-y it was. Where's that quote?
Wait, who was talking about that?
Clint Eastwood.
He thinks this is too exposition-y?
No, it was too exposition-y at first,
Oh, okay. I
and
was gonna
then
say
he
like, dude, I feel like it's pretty, it's
pretty
pretty,
lean, right?
yeah, pretty
I
lean.
can't I can't find the exact quote right now, so you'll have to trust me on this. But he was saying something to the effect of like, the initial script was just full of exposition. It was explaining everything too much. And he told Sergio, he's like, look, in an A picture, you let the audience think along with the movie. In a B picture, you do all the thinking for them. And so like that's his way of trying to convince Sergio Leone to like do less is more in terms of the exposition. And the example he gives, and he might talk at length about this elsewhere, but the example he gives, and I'm excited to get to this beat eventually, is when, after he rescues the woman and her husband and they're leaving, they ask him why he did it. Apparently, he just originally in the script, he just went on and on explaining all this stuff about his mother and his past and blah, blah, blah. And then it was Clint Eastwood's idea to shorten it to
Just
just,
shorten it to just like literally, I knew someone like you once, basically. Yeah, like that's not even
I knew
shortening.
someone
That's like
like you
just
once and there
gutting
was no one around to
to help.
do the,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
And that
gutting. Like,
perfect.
yeah.
I absolutely adore that. I think that's my favorite moment in the whole movie. Um, we'll talk about it more in depth when we get there. But yeah, so Clint Eastwood is largely responsible for this movie having such a less is more approach to the dialogue. The one drawback, I think, is that there were a couple times where I found exactly what he was meant to be doing for these different factions a little vague, or maybe I just wasn't paying close enough attention. Did you have that problem at all?
I mean, I know he shows up. He shows up at the Rojos or the Rojas place, and while the guy is pretending to like want to be hanging up his gun, right? He's gonna advocate for peace. I'm not super clear on what he was doing for the Baxters, really, apart from just playing, like, kind of seeing what they'll give him for the information that he's getting from the Rojas.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I guess is
That
like
was
that.
that was Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, I was just gonna. I guess that's like it's really like that's all there is to it, right? Like he's basically just like, hey, this is what I'm not really beholden to them yet. This is what they're doing. What's that information worth to you? Which
Yeah.
you know Yeah, sure. What's kind of interesting though is that it is gonna sort of end up taking the side of, well, maybe not taking the side of, but sort of make it out to be that the Rojos or the Rojas are not, or they're the worst ones of the bunch, right? Like especially by the end, we find out that they're the ones who
Yeah.
have. It's
They're
like
more
it's
evil
yeah, they're
for sure.
more they're the worst of the two evils, because they have no honor essentially, which another really interesting tie into the samurai and to the medieval
If
chivalric
memory
tradition.
serves, sorry to interrupt you, but
No,
if
that's fine.
memory serves, doesn't in Yojimbo, doesn't he like offer to be a bodyguard to one of the factions?
He
Okay.
that happens a lot in both of them. Is
Yeah.
like he works with, he's like, oh, I'm a higher, because that was practice in those samurai times, like you have a wandering ronin, then like
Yeah.
you don't want to be that, you want to be hired by a lord, into
Sure.
his house. So he kind of plays off the idea of the two groups
Oh,
hiring
Yojimbo
him.
means bodyguard. That makes sense.
Oh, well,
I
there
didn't
you
know
go.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, in this, it felt a little more vague. I think that's one point I would give Yojimbo over this, like what he's providing the different factions and or like what he's claiming to provide the different factions as he plays both sides. That felt just a little bit more clear in a way that I just think works slightly better. Not that it's bad here, but it seems like it's less the focus in this one.
Yeah.
But okay, so after killing those four Baxters, he goes over to meet the Rojos, and what exactly? Like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to remember exactly what he tells them here.
To the Rojos.
Yeah,
At first, well, it's nothing at first, right? Because he goes in to be a hired gun, and the guy Miguel is like doing his act about hanging up his gun, so he leaves, and then he goes and spies on him as he's doing the massacre of the military
yeah, okay,
folks.
because
Yeah,
like the next big beat is the gold and that massacre that happens.
yeah,
What I see, this is why I'm confused because I have the transcript, and the transcript kind of jumps into mid conversation. And it's like, "I told you I wasn't cheap, but I think you'll find it's worth your while." And then he's counting out the money. He says, like, he counts to 100. He says, "The rest when you're all done." He says, "When do I start?" I'm not in a hurry, at least for the moment. I'd say with four less Baxters right now is as good a time as any to start, right? And so he's just like, we sort of jump into mid conversation. We've passed the point where they talk about what
Yeah.
actually he's doing for them. And I think that's why maybe it's just a little.
But okay, so like Emperor Goodwin is saying, like, isn't it that he just killed 4 Baxter men? So yeah, he goes over. I think that's right, right? Like he goes over because he's like,
Is he
well, I
getting
just
paid for killing them, or is he getting paid to be their
well,
guide
he's
going
basically just
forward?
like, hey, I just killed these 4 guys. What's that worth to you?
Okay.
I think is what
Okay.
it's like because he's gonna do that basically to the other side too. Like that's sort of his
Yes.
mo, right? It's like, hey, I just killed these 4 guys. What's it worth to you? Here's the money. And then he goes back over. He's like, hey, this here's this information. What's that worth to you? You know, he that's how he's playing them off of
Oh,
the way.
okay. So when he's like the rest, when you're all done, is that literally just to go kill all the other Baxters?
I guess so. Yeah, probably.
Okay. All right. I mean, that works. It's a little. I would like to have heard slightly more of that conversation. Not much more. You don't need a lot more than that. Anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
but it feels more like a retainer as well. So I don't know. It's just a little, just very mildly confused by that. Or just so the next big beat is that he is going to. He sees
He and the tavern
cavalry.
owner, he and the saloon owner see the cavalry, like the Rojas kill the like like basically 2 squads of military. They've killed one and then dressed up as them and then killed the other. So he watches this massacre happen of the Mexican military with maybe one like a guy on a machine gun who's maybe the best shot in the world because he misses every horse but hits every person, which is pretty impressive. Um, yeah, so he watches that happen so that they can steal a chest full of gold, right? Like that's
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, we skipped a little bit though. So he has this conversation with Rojos, and then he's slinking around, and he overhears a conversation between two of them where they're like, "You just gave him $100." It's like we never pay that much. Like why? Like why have you taken him on? Like why? Like And he says, "You cannot leave someone like that to do what he wants around here. He's capable of doing anything, and I want law and order in this place." Like if that's all you want, there's a much cheaper way. And they say just snuff him out, right? So
hmm,
it's like they're trying to. He's like a rogue element, and he is incredibly quick, with a gun. So he's going to be hard to kill. And so they're like, yeah, if you're on our side, that's a lot better than the alternative. They don't want him just sort of running around doing whatever he wants. Like, you need to be sort of brought under our rule, essentially,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so we'll pay you some money. And, if you kill more Baxters, hey, that's great. You're on our team. And the one guy's like, do you really trust this guy? You gave him a ton of money. And he's like, well, if he gets out of hand, we'll kill him.
yeah.
So like that's kind of where they are. And then that's when the army comes by with the gold they're transporting for a mission. Him and the
Well, it's
owner of the
exchange for arms,
cantina.
right? Like
Yes.
they're buying arms from the U.S.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's the logic with a bunch of gold. And so they go to meet by, is it the Rio Bravo? I think that's the name of the
yeah. So
river.
yeah, whatever. One of
And
those one
so,
of those rivers down down that way.
yeah. And so they go to sort of spy on this meeting, and they're sort of like watching from the sort of crest of a nearby hill. And it's a trap. They take the gold, and then the guys who we think at first are Union soldiers, who are clearly not, um, they open fire with like a giant, like, is that a Gatling gun? What type of gun is
Yeah,
that?
yeah, basically.
Yeah, and they just massacre a whole bunch of them. I would say this goes on for a little longer than it needs to, because they keep like, "Oh, am I done? Nope, there's one
Oh
more.
no,
I'll
there's
kill
one
him.
more. Yeah.
Oh, am I done? Oh no, there's two more. Let me kill
There
him."
is a bit of a comedy beat to it, yeah, where it's
Yeah,
like,
it just
yeah,
keeps going and going and going and going, and eventually you realize, "Oh my gosh, those guys are bad news. That's actually the Rojos. They stole the gold. They're even worse than the Baxters." But
whoa,
but then there's just little subtle things that are all working really well. So remember, like earlier, like he's very inquisitive, kind of like a noir detective, and he's talking about how like things always look different from higher up. So and like when he's spying on this meeting, he's kind of higher up on a hill, sort of watching from above. All that stuff is just working really well,
yeah,
all coming together. So now he knows that the Rojos stole the gold. right? And then he goes to meet with the Rojos again to meet with Ramon, who is the head honcho who he has not met up until this point, right? Um, so then, so here's the interesting beat, right? So then he goes to give them their money back, right? Because he's gonna leave, right?
Ye- yes.
So
Uh,
like he pretends like he had just gone on a long journey. He comes back and he says, "I found out many things when I was traveling, and I've decided that it's very stupid to just keep shooting at each other and without any results." Right? So he's like, "We're gonna have a truce," or at least that's what he's pretending to say. He's like, "We're gonna have a truce between the Baxters. Like, we're not gonna fight them anymore. You know, things we everything will be more profitable if we're just sort of like not at each other's throats, killing each other over, turf wars all the time, basically." So he's like, "I've come to my senses. Life can be so precious. It's foolish to risk losing it every minute. No, there's plenty of space for everybody in this town, even Baxter's. For this reason, I've decided to hang my gun up on the wall." And so that's when he's like, "Well, if you don't want me killing Baxter's, here's your money back. I only used a small amount of it. I don't like to take money unless I've earned it." Right? He makes a
yeah.
point of saying that because that's for him a big difference between him and someone like Ramon. So it must have been just as simple as like, "Hey, here's some money to keep killing Baxters for us." And so he's like, "Well, if you're not going to be killing or warring with the Baxters anymore, here's your money back."
Yeah.
So they offer like, "Hey,
Yeah.
stay with us for dinner tonight. We're going to have the Baxters over for a meeting and sort of hash things out." And he's like, "Well, I don't think they'd appreciate my presence."
Yeah. Yeah. He gets out of that.
Yeah, he's like, "There's 4 men in the cemetery on account of me." So, yeah, all
But
this
doesn't
stuff
he?
like
Yeah,
and
it's all
go ahead.
working very well. And doesn't he like he immediately goes over to warn the Baxters about what's going to happen? That's like,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. So he very like read like because he's seen what happened. He reads accurately the intents, the true intentions of Ramon, and goes and gets like he gives the money back and then goes and gets more from the Baxters. He gets like 5 times that money from the Baxters for
Yeah.
telling them, warning them about the inevitable betrayal from their
Mhm.
enemy. Which,
And
yeah,
I like that too. I really like that because he's like, "No, we're gonna make peace with the Baxters."
and
And
this
then
is a
he's
really
like, "All right."
interesting thing that this type of movie does a lot, right? And this is something that I really love because you don't know what his goal is entirely, but the scenes are consistently, oh, he's got the money. What is he? So I guess he's not about, like, he's not after money. That's not why, because he just got some. Oh, but wait, he gave it back. Okay, so now he's farther from his goal. Oh, but he's going to go and leverage that into getting even more money. Oh, and then he's going to leverage that into getting even more, but it's not really about the money. Like, then turns out it's not really about the money. So it's like, it's playing with your perception of what he's after for throughout the story, and I think that it does that really really well, where it's like, okay, in this scene he's farthest from the goal that we think he's after, but that's then he leverages it into more, and then we're like, okay, so he's achieved what he wants, but he's still moving, like, so he's not, like, you slowly start to get the sense that this is not what he's actually here for. He's not there
Yeah.
just for money, right? And then it lets you sort of build up that kind of it builds up a relationship with that character where you're like, okay, like this guy there's more to him than meets the eye, and
Yes.
it's going to turn into something good later on. It does it very very well. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and you also have the guy who runs the cantina who's always telling him like, "Get out of here while you still can. Like, you don't even need to pay me what you owe me. Just get out of here. Like,
Yeah.
you staying here is just going to cause more trouble. Trust me, you don't want it." And he's like, "Ah, maybe I do.
Yeah.
Maybe I do want it actually." So we
How about
have
you don't tell me what to do?
And so the other thing is that the Rojos are convinced that they can probably get away with the massacre of the I guess it's the Mexican army, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
so
and
like
it's both because they kill Union soldiers. They
they
take
killed
the
them before
they
that
kill
scene
them before
happened.
that
Yeah.
scene happens. They take their uniforms and then they massacre the Mexican
And they
army.
and they staged it to look like they all just killed each other, right? And that's
Yeah,
what their story's going to be, and they're like, "At least for now," basically, this is like The Wire type stuff. He's like, "At least for now, we need to pretend like we're at peace because they're gonna come investigate all this stuff, and we need to seem like everything's fine." So that's part of what's motivating him to, like, call a truce essentially between him and the Baxters is like we can resume the fighting once the investigation is over, right? Because we
yeah,
don't want them looking into our business right now.
yeah,
And
exactly.
so, in a way to stir up trouble, they're going to dig up the corpses of the massacred Mexican army
They're
guys.
gonna take two of
Or,
them. Yeah, they're gonna take two
or
of them and pretend
y-
that they've escaped and are hiding out in the cemetery, um, which is a bold move. Um,
yes,
yeah, but it is clever. You know, like one of those kind of fun schemes. Like again, like the nice thing about what he's doing is like you kind of just like, why? Why are we doing this? Oh, okay. I see what you're getting at. And then like later on the panic will ensue for Ramon as he finds out that, there's a potential the two of them have escaped. Um and so now his plan of peace is in jeopardy because if the Baxters get to them and talk to them, then everything is going to crumble and it's going to turn into an all-out gang war in the town.
yeah,
um and so then they all ride out, right, from like basically like the Baxters and the Rojos both evacuate the town to go and have a shootout in the cemetery, leaving Clint to kind of just wander around and do some investigation on his
yeah,
own,
which is
which is
so fun. And
yeah,
we cross cut back and forth between them in a really fun way. He's just like slinking around
like
doing
tapping
it's like
every
a
barrel.
stealth
He's like,
mission.
don't, yeah. Well, he's like he's just kind of wandering through, and he's like tapping every barrel with his gun, trying to find, hollow ones,
Yeah.
essentially. And then it
Yeah.
cuts back and forth between like this big shootout, this like kind of
Mhm.
action packed thing, and then it's just back to him being like, huh, dun dun. Yeah, no, yeah, that one's normal.
Yeah, like the back and forth between the very quiet
Yeah.
and the stealthy and
Although I
the
will
full
say
shoot
that the
up.
day for night did not
Yeah.
work very well.
No,
Like
it's
they
not very
just
effective.
slapped some cricket noises on top of it to make it like no, nobody will notice. I
Listen,
legitimately was like, oh, what did that? Was it like a more than a day's ride away to get to the cemetery? Like, what the fuck is
yeah,
going on?
I thought at first, I'm like, "Oh, okay, if this is day playing as early morning, I can live with it." And it's like, no, they keep cutting back and forth between actual middle of the night and this kind of not very effective day for night. It's not great. And the thing is, it's like you want to excuse it a little bit for the time period, but there was better day for night before this. It's just they didn't make it dark enough, essentially. That's the main problem. It just does
Yeah,
not look like night at all. And that's day for night, like nighttime exteriors are a tricky thing, but they did not do an especially
no,
good
no,
job of that in this movie. But it was a cheap movie, right? It was a very cheap,
yeah.
like low budget movie, all things considered. So they did the best they could.
Hey, you know what? And like once I realized, I was like, oh, they want me to think that's night. Sure, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, all right, fine, yeah.
Evo says in night, in Italy, night just looks like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
sure,
maybe
sure.
that's true. Maybe that's true.
I've never been to
Um,
Italy, so the Mexico of Europe, I've heard it called.
well, this is Spain actually. Is this what night looks like in Spain, Kevo? You'll have to let us know. Uh, so
Better
is
than
it? Yeah, like
AVP Requiem's Day for everything about this movie is better than AVP Requiem. But yes, that too. God damn. Have you seen that one, by the way? Did you ever watch AVP Requiem?
no, I did not.
Oh, don't. We might have to do that for a stream at some point. It's so bad. It's such a like it because AVP is not great, but it's fun.
Yeah, that's
The
what I've
AVP
heard.
Requiem just fucking sucks, man. It's such a slog.
There's night for day in that? Is
There
that what
is, yeah, there is.
that's, yeah, that's not
It's a
gonna be easy to do,
bizarre.
huh?
Yeah, no, it's not.
That's a it's a bold move, Cotton. Okay, so because I like all the sort of like macabre symbolism in
I even
this
think it
movie.
went to a
So
actually, now that I'm at AVP Requiem, like given how successful the first one was, which I'm pretty sure it was pretty successful. This is a complete tangent from from
it's
Fistful of
okay.
Dollars.
We never do those, so we're allowed to do them every
Yeah,
once in a
we
while.
can do that once or twice. But I think the first one was actually pretty successful at the box office, if I'm remembering right. Yeah, like I mean, over almost 200 million against a budget of 60 to 70. So like that's actually pretty good,
Not bad.
not including DVD sales. So like, not bad. And then the sequel just didn't even go to theaters, if I'm remembering. Like, I don't remember it even coming to a theater because I was excited for it and we couldn't find it. So
Mm.
yeah, that's pretty rough, man.
Well, I like one of the things getting back to the movie. So part of his clever plan, which would be more effective in the movie if it was actually nighttime, because it's so bright and they want you to think it's nighttime, but it's not. It's a little easy to tell that those are just dead bodies,
Yeah,
not two guys just like laying
just
next
like
to a
yeah, like
tombstone.
huddling next to a tombstone. But yeah,
But anyway,
but
one of
what
the things
else
that
are the cricket noises for? How
I
else how else are they supposed to tell you that it's nighttime?
so I like when they're going through with this plan and the guy who runs the cantina is helping him out, but he doesn't like it because it feels wrong to like desecrate the dead in this way. But one of the things that it speaks to his character that he's willing to do this, right? That he's willing to go dig up these dead bodies and like use them as props for the greater good. He's willing to get his hands dirty and kind of mess along the fringes of like what is acceptable moral behavior in order to serve the good ultimately, right?
Yeah,
And also, like, like the town is described as a cemetery, and then there's this big shootout in the cemetery itself, and like using these dead bodies and stuff like that. I don't know. It's all working. It feels very thematically coherent. And immediately following that is when we're at the Baxters and we do like the tense horror movie music leading up to him sneaking into her room, sort of like covering her mouth. And it's like, don't scream, I'm not here to hurt you, kind of thing. That whole sequence is really great. And he tells them, like, listen, they like we just don't understand why they want peace all of a sudden. It's like it's a trick. It's a trick. And if you want to get the jump on them, they're going to go to the cemetery to go try and kill these guys that they think got away. So this would be a great time if you wanted to lash out at them before they lash out at you. And so he's kind of pits them against each other so we can go slink around and do fun stealth mission stuff. Like there's a great part I can't. We can't show the whole thing, but I'm going to show you this image on screen, and you can imagine it. Many of you have seen the movie anyway. So there's a guy who's standing guard at the Rojo's
oh dude, it's
place,
so good.
and there's like a sort of like a draw gate top of a door that is drawn open by ropes and stuff like that. And he like shoots around this guy to like confuse and bewilder him to a point where eventually he's like head is between the hanging open door and the thing below it, and then he shoots out the ropes so it just like bonks him and knocks him out. It's really like kind of lighthearted and funny. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Because
yeah.
like he's just outright killed a number of guys already, that he would like go through the trouble of just like incapacitating this guy like it's a stealth mission is pretty funny to me. But he like I don't know, he's got an interesting moral code.
He's like he doesn't well, and the reason that he doesn't kill him is because he needs them not to be suspicious because like the whole I think it's because like each one, right? All of the Baxters and all of the Rojos are out except for this guy. So if he
Yeah.
kills him, they'll know who it is. Which like basically they'll be like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Because
Yeah, I think that yeah, that's
there's
part of
something
it for
to
sure.
that. Yeah,
And so he goes slinking around while we do the shootout. And one thing I quite liked about
he
the
does a
big
lot of
shootout.
Looney Tunes shootouts stuff in this. Now that I like,
Yeah, it's
it's
kind
good,
of it's
which is
fun.
fun. Yeah.
It's fun and it's cool.
Like later
Okay,
on in the
so
during the party where he shoots the cod piece off of the suit of armor. Like
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's
It's
gotta
fun.
yeah.
Cool Looney Tunes stuff. Um okay, a little moment here because right now we've seen Ramon and we've seen that he is ruthless and evil and all that sort of stuff, and he's like kind of clever, right, with the whole ruse that ends up allowing him to steal the gold and massacring all those guys. He's a clever guy. But then there's this moment during the shootout where it's like, oh, he's actually kind of a badass himself. Now we've seen earlier, actually maybe it's later, but we see that he's a great shot in his own right, right? Just it's a question of like who's quicker between him and Clint Eastwood's character. But there's a great like badass kind of like Leroy Jenkins moment that Ramon has. So they're stuck in this like standoff in the cemetery, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then because they're getting shot at by the Baxters, but also they're trying to kill these two guys that they believe got away, so they don't tell anyone what they did. And so he grabs his gun, he goes like cavalier style, goes running into the heat of the the crossfire and everything, and he goes running down and he finds himself behind a tombstone. He lays down on the ground, he shoots one guy and does kind of like a barrel roll over and shoots the other guy and then runs out without getting shot. I'm like, damn, that's pretty cool, actually. I
Yeah.
like it when movies have these little moments where not just we establish how evil he is, but like how competent and brave and like, oh, I see why he's the boss, right? Like it's clear, it's
Yeah.
made clear in this movie why Ramon is Ramon and not someone else, right? The movie proves it that like this is the
Yeah.
guy, this is the evil.
He is the guy. He is the
Yeah,
guy.
he's a formidable foe.
Yeah.
Right? Like the head of the Baxters isn't really given that sort of treatment because ultimately the Rojos are the main bad guys, all things considered.
Yeah, well, like the worst sin of the Baxters really is being just kind of what's because the head of the Baxters is a sheriff, right? Like, or one of the people
Yeah.
allied with the Baxters is a sheriff, and it's more just impotence than like impotence and laziness than it is like the full on murderous sort of vengeance
They're
of
like
the
they're not
Rojos, right?
psychopaths in
Yeah,
quite the same way.
yeah, they're assholes, but they're not
And they're
murderers.
criminals and all
Yeah,
that sort of stuff and vicious, corrupt people, but like they're not quite as malevolently evil as the
the
Rojos.
worst sin is laughing at the mule. You are correct.
True.
Yeah, so like his thing where he like Leroy Jenkins is in and kind of just goes, "All right, ask him questions now."
Yeah. Like that's great. I really like that. I really like I don't know, it just feels like it's a real problem with a lot of modern villains is that like there's they don't always do the work to make them like you have to sort of like begrudgingly like respect how competent they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you want to see in a villain like this that like, oh, I see why he's the guy. You
Yeah,
know
well,
what I
and like
mean?
you feel that in Tarantino movies too, right? Like in like
Oh, you certainly do.
yeah, like
You
the
certainly
Kill
do.
Bill one where like Lucy Liu, Oren Ishii, right? When she like, jumps up, runs across the table and slices off the
Yeah.
guy's head, right? That like you
Mhm.
have to be like, well, that's okay, well, that's pretty cool. Like that's pretty fucking sick. Like
Yeah.
the
So
Michael
many
Madsen, in
so
the
many
second part.
modern villains are trying to do this thing where they're like horribly evil but also like laughably incompetent and it's like I just don't think
Well,
you can
yeah,
really
it's
do
either
both.
that or they're like, you know, they're like they're like Killmonger in Black Panther, where it's like, oh yeah, their weird eugenicist, racist view of the world is actually correct. It's just that
Yeah, well there's the misunderstood villain, that's its own kind of problem. But like a lot of times what you see in like just a lot of slop, like a lot of like Marvel slop, just like that sort of thing. The villain is like horribly evil, but also like not really deserving of any sort of respect or like admiration. I mean, admiration is not the right word, but it's like there's nothing impressive about them also because they want to have it both ways. They want them to be horribly evil, but then when it comes down to it, they're like easily bested by some like lame girl boss, and it's like, oh, like really, they're pathetic, and it's like it's not interesting when you try to do both. Like I first of all, it rarely works. It's rarely like it's usually what they end up having to do is make them very competent for the sake of the story in the first half, and then in the final act, they just become retarded for no reason. Like, so you get the
yes.
worst of both worlds. But
Oh,
I don't
hey,
know. I just
Solar
don't.
Dragon, bringing up a good point. Christoph Waltz in Inglorious Bastards is very similar to that.
Unbelievably
Yeah,
competent.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him so scary, and that's what makes,
Yes,
that's what makes the
exactly.
showdowns between the hero and the villain actually feel scary. As it's the character in Yojimbo, played by the other of my favorite Japanese actors, who has a gun hidden up his kimono. Like
Yeah,
that, yeah, that that makes, his competence makes things scary too, right? Like
yeah,
there's we've lost a lot of that.
yeah. I mean, a lot of it's lazy writing, but
Yes.
also maybe there's a tendency to be like, you don't. I don't know. They're just scared of making the villain too impressive
Yeah.
for whatever reason.
They
It's
don't
like,
want it to feel
especially
like a
especially with
challenge.
like
Yeah.
people who run like criminal organizations in movies. It's like you need to believe that anyone would follow this guy. You know what I mean? Like that's one of the things that works really well about like a Darth Vader type. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, yeah, he commands a presence. Like
Yeah.
you can understand why. You know, I don't know. I miss that in a lot of things these days, and so it's nice to see it here. I like that we give that like honestly pretty cool badass moment to Ramon, where he just runs in like Leroy Jenkins, and then he shoots those guys, and he makes a little like kind of a quippy joke, and then he leaves, and it's just like that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. It's
Like
brave.
Kingpin used to be competent. Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah.
Yeah, back in that original Daredevil show. Wow.
Wow.
For almost a whole season and or a whole season and change. Wow.
Anyway, so where were we? So he at one point when he's slinking through the sort of castle while everyone else is away, he runs into the woman he's meant to be after, and he accidentally punches her in the face.
Yeah, that's fucking hysterical.
It's
Just like
great. I absolutely love that, and the little like eye roll he does, like, "Oh fuck." Or does he punch her in the face, or does she
he no
faint?
he,
I can't remember.
he punches her in the face.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
Okay,
he
I
knocks
just
her the fuck out. Yeah.
yeah.
He knocks a bitch out. It's fucking
And then he like rolls his eyes, and now he's got to carry her away. And there's this great shot, this great little oneer. It's not like it's not one of these oneers that goes on forever, but it's like a solid minute long shot where he's carrying her away, and then he has to slink around the corner while still holding her as the other guys return home. And there's a lot of great stuff where like he's off to the side hiding around a wall, and you can see him, and you can see everything else happening in the
Yeah.
background.
That's
There's
such
a lot
a
of great
when they all
stealth,
come back in.
sneaky
Yeah,
stuff.
yes. It's so good, man. Like the composition of the shots is another thing that modern movies have really kind of lost. Uh we talk about the
I really
lighting, but
like
like composing actual good master shots like this, like where he's hiding behind the wall and you see them all ride into the courtyard, and we get to linger, right? We don't have to cut in on the conversation between those guys. We get to watch that happen from his perspective basically, and then
yeah,
see them run up the stairs and everything like that. Like we don't have that anymore. We have to jump constantly between shot to
yeah.
shot.
This movie, what's so impressive about it, the way it's shot and edited, is that it really knows when it's meaningful to cut into individual character close-ups and when you can just hang back in the wide and like watch moments play out in the background, for example. Like it really knows that you can let some things breathe, and like when it's going to be really important to like get into like a sort of intimate close-up. And
Yeah.
I really admire that because it's like I said, it's kind of the best of all of those worlds. You know what I mean? All those techniques are sort of being used very deliberately. And so he rescues the woman, and he takes her to the Baxters, right? Yes.
Yes.
And then he gets paid for
For doing that.
what?
Yeah.
Yeah, because in the shootout, the Rojos captured one of the Baxters, right? And so the Rojos are like, well, like that didn't go according to plan, but we killed those guys, and we have a Baxter now. So like we'll have all the leverage we could possibly want. They don't know that she's missing yet. Like he finds out, Ramon finds out and sort of yells out like, "Where is she?" And then we cut to him taking her to the Baxters, and they're like, "Oh, thanks. Now we have someone we can, negotiate. We have leverage now, or we have equal leverage now, so they can do a prisoner swap type thing. And that's what we get in the next day, right in the middle of town. First of all, by the way, just another little bit of great symbolism. In the middle of town, it's a very dry, dusty, arid, dirty kind of place, but there is one tree in the middle of the town
Yep.
square, and it's dead.
Yep.
Just, it's perfect, man. It just says everything. Great.
Yeah.
It's so good. And so then we see the prisoners swap, and as they're being exchanged,
And when she like, and she walks barefoot, like
yeah,
after she gets, yeah. I mean, come on, dude. Like, it's so good. These little details that you wouldn't think would matter, right? Like, or they wouldn't, and they definitely wouldn't to a modern movie maker. But like these little details where she walks barefoot. She doesn't take the ride on the horse during the prisoner exchange.
hmm
After she's, like, and this is where it's revealed that that was her son at the beginning getting shot at, right?
yes,
Yeah. I mean, it's so good. It's such a tight movie. Really,
yeah.
yeah.
There's a great snap zoom on them when they hug, when they embrace. It's just like to really put an exclamation point on that moment. Like it's like this is important. It's like boom, crazy snap zoom in on it. I'm like that's great. I like that. First of all, I just love snap zooms, but also I just love like the fun we get to have visually. Um, and this is when it's revealed because then the father, her real husband, goes running out to embrace them, and then basically there's a tense moment because obviously Ramon's like, no, that's my, what's the word for that?
Uh, concubine. I
Yeah,
don't.
concubine was the word that came to mind, but I wasn't sure if that was the right one. And basically, it's like, uh, eventually, Clint Eastwood, like, because there's a standoff, they're pointing the guns, and they're like, because they're trying to protect the mother and her child, right? But Ramon obviously wants her back and wants the child to be taken away. And interestingly, Clint Eastwood steps in to be like, go back to him. Like, not now. We're not ready yet. And you don't really know. I mean, you can maybe have a suspicion of where this is going if you understand stories, but like he doesn't like ultimately he's like, go back to him right now. Like, I will bring you back together later, but like this isn't the right moment for that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And I think that's really strong because it says a
yeah,
lot about his character. It just
absolutely.
like you should,
Yeah.
yeah.
He
And so
takes the whole. It's another. It's like reflective of the point where he's on the balcony looking down at, like, assessing the situation, right? Because he kind of, the way that it's shot, you understand that he has calculated out what's going on. Like, he
yeah,
sussed it out instantly, and he's like, okay, I now have a plan. You better get going, right? Like,
yeah.
and by this
Don't worry.
point,
Yeah.
right?
Go ahead.
By this point, when he says it, you as the audience trust that he is gonna figure it out, right? Because like that's what we've done. Like that's the work we've done in the first half of this movie. Basically, is establishing that this guy has his shit together and he's gonna figure it out. Like we know, we've seen through the interaction. So it hasn't had to tell us that he's going to do any of this stuff. We've watched him do it. And I mean it's basic, right? That's what you should be doing as a
Yeah.
writer or as a director, but it's executed so well that it
Yeah.
bears mentioning, you know? Like we have
Probably also worth
built
mentioning
that.
that Clint Eastwood is exceptionally good at sort of conveying thinking without saying anything.
Yes. Yeah, that's
There
something he's
there's
very good at. Yeah.
He's very good at it, and it's part of why he can get away with with characters that don't actually say all that much or reveal that much of what they're thinking and feeling is because you can see and imagine the gears turning in his head. And there's a lot of actors, I hate to say, are just not good at that. That's like
That's
actually
probably because they're not they don't do very much of it.
because they don't do very much thinking. They don't know what it looks like. Yeah, like I really like a great example because you really need that quality for a detective character in
Yeah.
a story. And I'm a big fan of like a nice, like sort of detective mystery thriller type thing. I'm a big fan of David Fincher's Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and I really like Daniel Craig in that movie. Though he can't really, you can see why they picked him. Though he cannot do the accent, and he doesn't even try doing the Swedish accent. Like man, when you're like watching him piece things together in that movie, you can see it happen in his head.
Yeah.
You can see the realizations. You can see the gears turning, and I really admire that quality in an actor. Clint Eastwood really has it. Like this scene where they're like everyone's threatening each other, and he's like, "You should go to him. Like, come on, you need to go to him." And then they're exchanging glances, and you can see everything, or you can really imagine everything going on in his head. Where basically he's communicating with his eyes to her, like, not yet. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't know. He's just really good at that.
He
He's like,
is. Yeah.
and I think, you might someone might think it's as easy as just like you don't have to say anything and the audience does the work for you, but I think a lot of it is in like where he's looking when and all that sort of stuff. It's a
Absolutely.
it's a subtle quality to have, but he has it in
Yeah.
spades.
Very rare,
Oh
especially
yeah.
especially now. Yeah, so they do the prisoner exchange, and she goes back, and
They're celebrating and
so
they're
yeah,
shooting at the armor,
yeah, that's that part. Yeah, yep.
Uh-huh.
And sorry, go
So
ahead.
there's a lot of great things in short succession here. So they bring out the suit of armor, and he's using it as target practice, right? Which says a lot about Ramon too, symbolically, right? Is that he has no respect for it. He has
Yeah,
no respect for what that represents.
yeah, well, yeah, because like when our hero Clint is doing it, right? He's breaking off a piece of it, but he's not damaging it, which is
Yeah.
kind of fun, right? Like that he's
And then
shooting at
ultimately
it.
he's going to incorporate that himself, right? But Ramon, he sees the suit of armor as just something to shoot at, right? And
Yeah.
to like go for the heart and like
And
like to
yet he does it in a
disrespect.
way he disrespects it, but he does it in a way that's like kind of impressive because he shoots an
Yeah.
actual heart shape into the
He
heart area, right?
Yeah,
Which is a
yeah, because
very
he's very
yeah, because he's very talented. Exactly.
yeah,
And it perfectly sets up the conclusion of the movie where he's gonna, do what he does.
yeah,
Gonna shoot Clint's character a bunch of times in the heart, and like keep aiming for it, which like it sets up his stubbornness on that
mhm,
point. So like,
yes,
which is another like, because there is a definite air. I think the Back to the Future scene where Biff is watching this scene, right? He says something like, "Wow, this is so stupid. Why not just shoot him somewhere else?" Basically, right? But what
mhm,
this does is it sets up thematically and characteristically Ramon's stubbornness of like, no, the heart is the important thing to go after, and what he like
yeah,
he's doing everything he's doing to break the heart of the people in the town, right? Like he
yeah,
keeps the mother of the child to break the father, keeps the town the way it is to break the spirit, to break its spirit. So he is
yeah,
going after, like he can't fathom shooting somebody else or somewhere else on,
yeah.
like he has to go for the heart. That's his thing. That's
And also,
the
like, he keeps this suit of armor around just to, like, destroy it because he doesn't like it as a sort of, like, a noble ideal, right? Like, symbolically, that's sort of what it ought to represent, and then he just uses it to, like, desecrate it and to, like, to try to destroy the heart of, like, the ideal itself, and then when he sees Clint Eastwood coming around, he's like, "I don't trust him. I don't like him."
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we don't want that kind of like, he might get some idea about trying to do good here, and we can't have that, so I'm gonna try to shoot him in the heart
I
too.
was mistaken about Biff. Biff likes it in the movie, but yeah, no, that is yeah. Point still
You get
stands
called out?
overall. I did.
Yeah, you got
I
called
did.
out in the chat.
I haven't
Get
seen that
fucked.
movie in so fucking long, dude. We should watch Back to the Future at some point too.
And there's also the fact that, center of
Nobody ever
mass.
mentions that in the conversation for greatest trilogy, probably for a very good reason.
I've only seen the first one.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty much that's the only one you really need to see. We were having this discussion yesterday, actually. I don't think you need to watch any of the others, honestly. I feel like the first one is fine to watch on its own. Uh, it's a
Mhm.
little bit like Pirates of the Caribbean, like where the first one
Sure. That's
clearly
the
is like
one.
that's the
Yeah.
one, right? But then once you watch the second one, you're kind of roped into watching the third, and it's like,
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. Um, oh, another thing it sets up is we see him like as he's, going to bed for the night or whatever. One last thing Ramon does before he leaves is he rather aggressively and sort of in a dominating sort of way kisses the woman whose name I don't remember, just to like sort of claim her as his, property again, essentially. And then he leaves, right? And then, as everyone else is going to stay and drink and have a good time, we get another little bit of him being clever where he pretends to be drunk. I love this. This is great. It's a little detail where he's like, they're carrying him back to his bed or whatever, and he's like singing and pretending to be absolutely hammered. And then they lay him down, and immediately his eyes open. You can tell that he's not drunk at all. It's just, it's really nice, really good.
yeah, yeah, it's yeah.
I
And
don't know.
that's
I
when
just
he
love. I
sneaks.
love this
Yeah,
character, this archetype so much. He's sneaky. He's like
he's just fucking
he's
cool, bro.
good-hearted, but he's sneaky.
Yeah,
I just love that kind of character so much.
he's keeps a cool head in a snake pit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
And he's got like a devious streak to him.
yeah,
It's one of the things that I genuinely like, and this has always been. I won't go too long on this tangent, but always been a little bit of an annoyance with me, especially when it comes to the prequels, is that I feel like George Lucas immediately in the very beginning understood the sort of like Jedi code better than he does later on. Like for example, like Obi-Wan Kenobi is very sneaky in episode 4 in like A New Hope. You
yeah.
know what I mean? He's always using subterfuge,
Well, it's because
right?
that's because he took it from things like this. He took it
Yeah,
from the movie that
but in a good
inspired
way.
this in a good way. Yeah.
In a good
No,
way.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah. Like he stopped doing that afterward is the problem. He like yeah.
yeah, I like but like it's you know, I like that sort of character a lot where like, like there's a lot of that in Harry Potter too. For all of Harry Potter's like writing problems, one of the things that I really like about it is that like the sort of hero of the story is someone who's got a little bit of that sort of like sneaky devious side to him as well.
Yeah.
Right? Like but that's the whole symbolism of the like, oh, you should have been a Slytherin thing. And he has that like he's like a rule breaker and he's always like going against the rules and sneaking around and but ultimately he's doing it for the sake of the good. And Obi-Wan Kenobi, he's like using mind control to trick the stormtroopers and all that sort of stuff and like going in doing covert things like that. And in this, like he's doing it for the good. He's got his devious plan. He's manipulating people and lying and pitting them against each other ultimately for the sake of the good. And he's like sneaking around. I don't know, I just like that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I like that. I think that's the thing that he ends up losing by the time we get around to the Star Wars prequels, right? Like not to go off on too much of a tangent, but like more Fistful of Dollars in Star Wars would have been a good thing, right? Like
Yeah.
more
Is
more
that because
Yojimbo in Star Wars would have made the whole thing better, you know?
yeah, because that stuff is there in the DNA of the first movie, and then by the time you get later on in the franchise, it's just gone. Like ostensibly, The Mandalorian is like trying to bring back some of this, but doing just an awful job of it because they don't seem to really understand what
Well,
works
yeah, they
about
don't
this
fucking
type.
get it either, man. They like
Yeah,
they did for a second. They did for like there was a little bit where you're like, oh, okay, maybe, and then the end of the first season, you're like, oh, nah, he did. John Favreau's just doing whatever he wants. He
yeah.
doesn't. He doesn't know. He doesn't get it.
I have said this many times now. I don't know how many times we've said it on stream, but like if you're going to try and like rescue Star Wars as a franchise at this point, which first of all, let me just say I would much prefer to see someone try to make the next Star Wars type thing instead of trying to rescue Star Wars itself. We could
Yeah,
just let it die personally. But if you are going to try and save Star Wars as a franchise and as a vehicle for good storytelling in the future, I would say that the way to start is to take a random unknown Jedi completely disconnected from everything to do with the Skywalkers and the Empire and all that sort of stuff. You have a wandering Jedi on some distant planet. You could even make it a little deserty planet, but it would be more interesting to vary up the locale a bit and just have him wander into town and discover a sort of problem besetting the good people of a town, and he sort of helps them and then moves on to the next thing. And that's you make that a singular movie. You take as much as you can without infringing on the copyright of a Yojimbo and Fistful of Dollars and any of these other westerns and samurai movies. And then that's how you start again, right? You don't try to do some grand world building thing. You just have one Jedi on one planet dealing with this one problem, right? That's for me, I think that's how you could start to rescue something like that. You know,
No,
like,
you're wrong. The next movie
oh,
should be called Mandalorian and Grogu if you're gonna rescue Star Wars.
I can't believe they're actually making that into like a theatrical film because
No, but
everything
like,
about it looks like a TV show.
yeah, no, it looks like you did that. Like this should just be the blowout ending of the Mandalorian. But no, I agree with you 100%. And actually, I feel like they should. I'm gonna go one step further and just say, just make Yojimbo with a Jedi.
Yeah,
Just do
you
that.
could crib a lot
Literally
from
just
this
do that.
movie.
Yeah, make
Yeah,
Yojimbo or Fistful of Dollars with a Jedi, and all of a sudden Star Wars has more interest for me again. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Now, if you want to make it a different problem to solve for copyright reasons, you don't want it to be two rival gangs that he's caught in the middle of. But like, you know, Jedi wandering knight, wandering Ronin, wandering cowboy comes upon a town beset by a problem. He has to solve the problem for them.
Yeah.
You could do a Saint
You
George
could
and
do
the
a Saint George.
Dragon
Yeah,
type
I
story.
was, yeah, in the middle of saying it. Yeah, yeah. Just do a Saint George and the Dragon story with a Jedi instead. That would
Mhm.
be fucking sick, man. That would say that you could save Star Wars by just being
You
more
could.
like a samurai movie. Actually, almost everything about Star Wars would be better if there were more samurai tropes involved. But
Yeah. Essentially,
that's
yeah.
a different problem for another time.
Yeah. I mean, people, yeah.
That is
That's what they
exactly
need to go back
okay.
to.
Georgius Rex is pointing out that is exactly what Kenobi could have been. Yeah, yeah, it could have.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah, it could have.
It didn't have to be about how he had the chance to kill Darth Vader and didn't fucking do it. It could have been about. It just could have been about him wandering around Tatooine solving people's problems.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What a shame.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, and it's just like
Well,
I
because
don't trust
George
anyone in
forgot his.
charge to. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
George forgot his influences. That's really the problem with.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
That's definitely a huge part of it.
And he didn't understand why why he liked I don't think he understood why he liked what he liked. He just kind of liked it and went with it, you know.
Yeah,
It's what yeah,
I,
common
yeah,
problem.
I think
But
it seems like part of what really worked about A New Hope is that like he just kind of trusted his gut, and his gut knew, but like maybe intellectually he didn't quite know, you know?
yeah.
Yeah, because like
That's what I mean. That's
eventually,
what I mean. Yeah.
yeah, like because when you get to like the Return of the Jedi, when he's like trying to make like the Viet Cong into little teddy bears, it's like I feel like we've drifted away from what was working originally. You know, it's like I don't know. I see that happen to a lot of people though, where it's like they intuitively understand something, but maybe they don't. You know, like James Cameron. You know what I mean? Like I feel like he intuitively understood. Oh, sorry, there is no better example than the Wachowskis.
Oh, well, yeah.
The Wachowskis understood something intuitively in the Matrix that they have trying to ruin it with their like conscious intellectualizing ever since.
Yep.
It's like no, like you deep down you understood something and your brain has just ruined it ever since.
Yeah.
You've ruined yourself, but there's that. It's so funny
What are
to
you
me.
talking
So
about? Like
I'm
they
going
didn't
at
become better filmmakers when they became women?
no, they didn't. Imagine that. Imagine that. It's so funny to see people be like, "Ah, The Matrix was a trans allegory." It's like, no, it
No,
wasn't.
it
You
fucking
haven't
wasn't.
watched it. You know what is
I had an
though is the
argument at
Matrix.
my old job about that. It was like when he was just like, "No, the Matrix is a trans allegory." And I told him no, and he goes, "Well, the Wachowskis have said that it was," and I was like, "Yeah, but I watched it, so I know it wasn't."
Yeah,
Like,
I literally know better than them. I'm not being ironic.
I
I
know
know
more than
better. Like, because you know what is a trans allegory is the Matrix Resurrections.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's dog shit. Just something to think about. We should probably get back to A Fistful of Dollars, a good movie, a good
Yeah,
movie.
a very good movie.
And so he's pretending to be drunk, and then
Yeah, and
when
then he
he's
sneaks
alone,
off and he rides off and frees the woman. And we had that we talked about this great point where he gives her and her husband some money and says to go, and he like we don't get too much exposition on the backstory. We just get him to say like, yeah, I knew what someone like you once and there was nobody around to help. So why don't you go get
yeah,
out of here? He gives him the like the treatment of a kid, in a movie throwing a rock at his dog. Like, get out of here. Come on, get.
yeah, get out of here. That was kind of funny.
Yeah.
That little beat where he's like, "Go on, you stupid idiot, get out of here." Yeah. Oh, but right before he has to go like essentially rescue the dad who
Yes.
is being kind of held captive by a bunch of goons as well. And so he goes and shoots them all, which is a pretty fun kind of yeah, very Tarantino like sort of vengeful scene. It's great.
Yeah. And then he has to ride back cuz like ride back and beat the guys back to the this is really well done too, right? Where like
Oh yeah.
we'll watch the group of horses ride across the screen, and then he'll come on his mule like scurrying down the cliff, and there's a few of them like that, and I don't think it gets old. Honestly, I really like the tension that it builds up because at first it's them riding and then him following, but then it gets to the point where he's in front, so it's like it's telling you visually that he's winning the race, which I think is
Yeah.
brilliant. It's fucking it's so fucking it's
And the
so
music,
simple,
oh,
but
yes.
it's brilliant. Really
This
well
that's a
done.
great way to describe the whole movie is it's very simple but effective,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That is there's nothing outrageously complicated about this movie. There's nothing really we're not reinventing the wheel symbolically either. Everything is just like, yeah, it's a, it's about it's a movie about sort of like rescuing life and decency from death and vice. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And so all the symbolism is just working very coherently with that in mind. So,
But he makes it back, and he has been bested. First time that we are gonna see he's been you know, his plan hasn't quite worked out because Ramon came home early, uh, and caught him sneaking in. And so now he's been captured, and we get our basically our Dark Night of the Soul. He gets the shit kicked out of him. He's
yeah.
being tortured. It's
Yeah, he's
brutal.
getting cigarettes put out on him. The one guy with like very blue eyes. This is such a Tarantino thing.
Yeah, he's
Like,
just sitting there cackling the whole
he's
time.
cackling the whole time, just laughing his ass off, just in the background while a guy's getting tortured. Like that's such a detail that Tarantino would put in his movies. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I don't know. That was really effective. And then eventually they're like, all right, that's enough torture for now.
Because he's not talking. That's the other thing. Like they're not
Yes.
getting what they want out of him, right?
Yep.
So they're like, okay, well, we'll let him. He can't feel anything anyway right now, because we
Hmm.
beat him up. Like we went for the head, the victim got all fuzzy, right? So we gotta give him some time to recover. And
But like the big brute with the jerry curls, he like
yeah,
like has like the heel of his cowboy boots and it's like crushing his hand and everything. That's a really nice detail. Just to add
insult to
just a
injury.
little yeah, but also just a little bit of an allusion to some sort of like, Christian symbolism where it's like you're getting the nail through the hand or just getting
Yeah,
his hands crushed, right? Like his tools of acting in the world, they're destroying, hoping to just completely incapacitate him and prevent him from doing anything. But and that's what I really appreciate about this. And this is, partly in keeping all good like hard-boiled noir detective movies have the protagonists getting their shit kicked out of them constantly as well. And I was really glad to see because most of the movie he gets away kind of unscathed, and so I was really happy to see this because then now he's like literally forced to like crawl along on the ground,
yeah.
right? which is another
and
great little
still
detail.
fucking oh god, and still fucking outplay them at every angle, which is great. You know, like he sets up the big ass barrel to, you know, roll down the ramp, which is unreal. Like it's such a good shot, dude, when the barrel comes
Yeah.
in and then snap zooms in on the like, I mean, it's funny, but it's
It
like
is funny.
it's funny, but it works, and then it like
Oh yeah.
explodes when it hits them, which is great. And like, and you're wondering, like, you're sitting there wondering, like, okay, well, like, I know he's gonna get out of it, but how? Right? Like, how
Yeah.
is this gonna work? And so he crawls over them. He gets to the other side. Everybody comes running in, and they think he's still in the room until they're all in. He doesn't do anything. He waits. He's patient. He's
Yes.
cunning, and after they all get into the room and start making a search of it, that's when he lights the match and sets the whole thing on fire, and then he makes it out. But he doesn't make it out completely because he has to keep crawling, so he has to go underneath the floorboards of
Yeah,
which is
that's so
so
good.
good.
And it's blocked and staged so well that like he slinks under those boards like just in time to not get noticed by the guys coming out of the fiery house, you know? It's just it's like perfectly tense and believable and suspenseful and all that.
Yeah.
And so he's like under the floorboards, under their feet, having to crawl along on the
The
ground.
shot of his eyes through the crack in the
Oh
floorboards
yeah.
is, yeah, as they're talking about, you know, hunting him down and finding him. He crawls his way over to the coffins, and then the Undertaker, he manages to convince the Undertaker to, you know, roll him out of town, right? But
Yes.
the
Hide him in a
Rojos,
coffin,
yes, yeah,
importantly.
hide
And
him in
so
a
like
coffin
yeah,
because he's dead, like,
yeah.
and going to rise again.
Yeah, I mean, but honestly, all that
Yeah,
stuff is there, man.
yeah,
Like you know, he's getting tortured in the like you know he's going through his passion essentially, and then in order to escape, he has to like crawl along the ground in the dust like a snake, like a serpent,
yep,
and then you know, and then he obviously he gets has to like literally be carried out of there in a coffin, so he has to descend into suffering and death to ultimately escape and win and defeat the evil. And I'm just like, yeah, man. Just unbelievably straightforward and effective stuff. Really, really good. Really, like I can't say enough good things about it. So as he's being wheeled out in the coffin, he at one point he stops him, the Undertaker, like opens up the coffin so he can like watch what's about to play out. And there's a big shootout
because
where the row
they are convinced that he is hiding with the Baxters, right?
sure,
So they
as you
go,
would.
as you might be, considering everything that has been discovered about him. So they go and they set fire to the Baxters' house, and as they're all coming out and saying we surrender, they just shoot him down. You know, like fish in a barrel, basically, right?
Yeah.
And he
And even the widow
even the way to,
too.
oh god, it's brutal too. It's like
Yeah.
it's a difficult one, and that's
Not that
this
she's
is
a great person, but it does show a little something about how like scorched earth they're going.
yeah. And well, and like the fact that they're willing to do that, right, is like to just kill them all, which shows, and like he stops the Undertaker and says, I want to watch this, right? So it shows the
Yes.
lack of honor, and he's witnessing it the whole time, right? He makes sure to watch it, right? To make,
Yes.
which is, there's something symbolic in that too, right? Is that he's essentially rendering judgment in from the
Yeah.
grave at this point. He's like, okay, well, yeah, no, like I know this is what the kind of people that they are, and you know we're justifying the end of the film by doing this, right? Like, you know, they are way more evil than, you know, the other side, you know.
Yeah.
So he ends up out of town in a cave doing an Iron Man
In a
rebuilding
mine,
thing in
yeah.
a mine.
And
Yeah.
he's taking a piece of metal and sort of like, you know, testing it and like,
Well, he
you know,
hammers it
working.
to build his grip strength, and he tests
Yes.
it by shooting it to make sure that the bullets don't go through. You know,
Hmm.
yeah, and then he cuts a bit off, and you know he's filing it down into a vest. And the Undertaker comes to let him know that his friend, the tavern owner, has been captured essentially by the Rojos, and they are going to, you know, like he won't break, you know, but he they're gonna torture him. You know,
Yeah, they're gonna kill him,
they're gonna kill him.
essentially. And so, I mean, he was thinking of like going back and rendering the ultimate judgment on these guys anyway, but it's also like
He was,
it also
yeah,
says something about how, you know, sort of like smart and cunning to a degree that the Rojos are. That they're like, oh well, if we can't find him, we'll go to the guy that we know he likes. And they're also like, this is what you get for being friends with him. Don't they say that
Yeah,
to
something like that. Yeah, yeah.
something along those
This
lines?
is
And I like
paralleled really well in Unforgiven, by the way. They do a parallel of this in
interesting.
yeah.
Don't tell me too much about it because I still haven't seen Unforgiven. Yes, yes, I know. I have to at some point. But also, I did kind of have this idea that like I should watch more of the straightforward westerns before I watch the one that people describe as like a sort of subversive western.
Yeah, yeah. Well, subversive, but like in an interesting way, not in a
Oh
knives
yeah,
out
no,
kind of
not in
way.
a bad way. No, no, no. But I do kind of want to get a little more familiar with. Anyway, doesn't matter. So, what I like about the detail that not only are they like, okay, well, if we get this guy, maybe he'll know where he is, and that can help us because we want to kill him. But also, we know that he cares that Clint Eastwood cares about this guy, so maybe they'll draw him out. But also, they want to punish him for ever being friends with him in the first place.
Yeah,
And if you're reading into that, it's like this judgment, this like hero, that is rendering judgment upon us and causing us all this strife, like we're gonna punish you for even associating with him. Like this is what you get for even like having hope at all, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Because they've so strangled and destroyed and starved this town and like destroyed anyone that gets out of line, and so like you took this guy's side, we're gonna punish you extra for that.
yeah.
Yeah.
But so he
And
comes riding
so
back in, and
mhm.
they they see him. Well, he first he
First of all, the
the
explosion.
explosion that he sets off. Yeah, on the one end of town, he sets off the explosion, which and he comes sauntering back in, and he's basically he's like cut the old
He-
man down.
well, first of all, because I know this is kind of visually an homage to Yojimbo specifically with the dust and the wind, but like the way he's revealed by the wind blowing the cloud of smoke and dust away. Oh my God, it's so fucking
Yeah,
cool, man. It's so
it's
cool.
so good.
It's awesome. So then, yeah, and so we kind of see him in the distance with all the wind and the dust blowing around, and he tells them to cut him down. You were saying,
Oh yeah, no, he tells him to cut him down, and basically, there's been some setup, especially in the earlier scene, right, with the suit of armor, where Ramon tells him that there's an old Mexican proverb. Oh, dude, what a great scene! Hold on, before we continue, right? He goes, "There's an old Mexican saying or proverb that like if when a man with a rifle and a man with a pistol meet, the man with the rifle always wins." And Clint looks at Marisol, the mom, right, as he's smoking, and he just kind of goes like, "Do you believe that? You believe that?"
mm,
Which
yeah,
is like a great. It's such a great line. Anyway, so that we've set that up, right? And he comes walking back in, and Ramon pulls his rifle out, shoots him in the heart a couple times, and he like staggers and falls, and everybody's like, but then he stands back up, and he keeps walking.
okay. Worth mentioning. First of all, the poncho and
Yes.
it's an iconic look. It's a great poncho, by the way, and I like
Yeah.
that we see so many uses and utilities for the poncho, right? So like he's using it as a blanket at one point, which is just a fun little detail. But so the poncho, in addition to him being a sort of like synthesis of the sort of like the American and the Mexican and all that sort of stuff, and like being one with the sort of the region and all that sort of stuff. Also, the poncho like hides like his movements under it. Really, like you can't tell exactly when he's going to go for his gun, and also it very deliberately hides the metal vest he has on. And I'm just like, that's everything about it is working very, very
Yes.
well. It looks awesome, but it serves a practical purpose, not just for him in his normal life, but like in the main big dramatic moment at the end of the movie, the poncho is like serving to like hide the fact that he has this metal vest on. It's so good, man. It's
Yeah.
just so good. It's
It's
like
fucking
perfect,
awesome.
perfect character design, perfect costuming, everything about it. I love it.
Yeah.
It
And
looks great. It's
yeah,
just a really I like the sort of like dark green with the spirals on it. It's great.
and you can like again, like I talked about this earlier, right? But like the fact that he keeps trying to shoot him in the heart because that's what he is trying to kill the soul, the heart and the soul of the town. He's trying to kill him at it basically, right? What is this? It's Jesus resurrected, right? He's trying to put him down, but he's realizing that he can't. And it's
Yeah.
like he keeps trying and it doesn't work, right? And so then like he kills all the guys standing around him at the fountain, but he doesn't kill him. He's like, well, you said there was a proverb about a man with a rifle and a man with a pistol. Let's see if you're right. And so he puts the gun on the ground, and they race to reload. It it creates so much tension in the showdown, but he's rattled because of the bulletproof vest. So
Yes.
it's
But also there's an honor
ah
thing. He wants to
yes,
like
he wants to give him the
test
shot.
him
Yeah,
in a fair fight.
yeah,
And I'm like, that's really interesting as well. And he's just like, not only am I going to defeat you because I outsmarted you with this clever vest thing, but also I'm going to defeat you because I'm just better than you. And I'm going to prove it too. And by giving you the opportunity to have as fair a fight as you can, I'm going to unload my gun and throw it on the ground. And then we'll see who's faster, who's better.
yeah.
That's just
It's
fucking
so
awesome,
fucking. It's
man.
so
It's
fucking.
so good.
It's so
It's so
fucking cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's really great, but it really ties into the whole thing about him sort of representing a like sort of noble ideal in this landscape. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's just like it's not only am I proving that I'm better than you, I'm proving that like the good is better than evil, essentially. You
yeah.
know what I mean? In a fair fight, that good wins and that evil doesn't. It's just that's why I like this movie so much because it feels like it's connected to sort of like a deep well of like traditional, storytelling. It doesn't feel like this exclusively modern story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Feels like it's rich in sort of tying back into a very simple and powerful mode of storytelling. And
Absolutely.
like the tense shootout, but then like the extreme close-ups on the eyes, really really good, really powerful stuff. And then he shoots him, and it's interesting because there's not a ton of blood in the movie just by virtue of it being kind of low budget. There's not a lot of squibs or anything. Mostly when people get shot, they clutch their chest and fall over.
Yeah.
Kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
an old-fashioned thing. But when there is blood in this movie, it's like
It's
candy
brutal. Yeah,
apple
yeah, yeah.
red.
It's great.
It really pops. And so when you do see it, it's very striking, you know.
Yeah.
And I think one of the first times you really see blood is when he's being tortured. I'm sure there's a little bit more before that, but like
Yeah,
that's when
yeah.
it really
Some of the other scenes.
but for the most part, it's not as because a lot of modern movies, even Tarantino to a degree, and I can have fun with blood splatter as much as the next guy, but I do think there's something quite excessive about how a lot of modern movies that are trying to be cool and like rated R and cool and edgy or whatever, they just go like really overboard with like gore and blood splatter.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, nah, yeah, I'm not here for that, you know? Like that stuff, like it can be entertaining for sure. Like I said, like I'm a big fan of a lot of Tarantino's later movies and they get really bloody and blood splurting everywhere and that can be fun. But you can use some restraint as well and that can be very effective. Because then when you do see the blood, it matters. It's like oh shit, okay.
Yeah. Real quick, Griftly Bear is asking, "Are you doing the trilogy?" Yes, that is the plan. We
Yes,
are doing. Yes,
that
we
is
are
the
going.
plan.
We are going to do the trilogy because, and especially because this one kicks so much ass. We are definitely going
Yeah,
to watch
yeah.
the
Oh, I'm
next one.
ready. I'm ready for the next one. This one's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. I
So
mean, like this is it, right? Like he kills him, he shoots him. Great, great scene. Gets him, and then he basically just says because the saloon
well, okay,
keeper.
so there's only a couple lines left, I'll read them out. So it's like okay, so at one point, this is a random little side note, The Undertaker calls him Joe.
Oh, really?
Now, I know that, like, he's supposed to be, like, the man with no name, but I think his name is Joe.
Well, yeah, maybe.
Because he's credited as Joe on IMDb,
Oh, that's funny. I didn't know that.
and but, like, as far as I can remember, this is, like, the only time he's ever called Joe.
Yeah. Well, in Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, they call him Blondie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I remember hearing that and go like, wait a minute, I thought he I thought he wasn't supposed to have a name. But the Undertaker calls him Joe, right here at the very end. I don't know if he calls him it any sooner. But anyway, so uh, Joe, the man with no name, says, "Well, I guess your government will be glad to see that gold back." And he says, and you don't want to be here when they get it?" He's like, "You mean the Mexican government on one side
And
and
the
the
U.S.
Americans on the other side?
Me
Me right
standing in the
smack in
middle.
the middle? Mm-mm, too dangerous. So long." And then he leaves.
Yep.
And he walks
And
off.
he rides off on his mule, and the
I think he walks
Undertaker's.
off, but yes.
No, he gets on the mule.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Gets on the mule and he rides off while the Undertaker is like taking measurements of the bodies in the middle of the square, and it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
That's the end of the movie, and I can't
Yeah.
wait for the next one. I had a great time with this. I really liked this.
Oh yeah. I suspected I'd like it, but I loved it.
Yeah,
I really did. And the more it's one of those movies that like I was like, man, that was really good when it ended. And then like now the next day, the more I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I think I love this movie.
yeah, same.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like it's growing on me even more the more I think about it, the more I talk about
yeah.
it, that it's just
The more,
like,
yeah. You know what's
yeah,
okay? So here's what's interesting too. So it turns out I didn't realize. I thought the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly was the third in like chronologically, but as it turns out, there's a big debate over whether or not the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is actually a prequel to this.
I've heard that it is a prequel, but I don't know if that's a settled thing or not.
Yeah, well, I think the main thing is that there's a grave in the next one that says 1874, and the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly takes place during the Civil War, ended in 5. So
Yeah.
it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, like yeah, technically this one previous. So and by the end he gets his iconic poncho. Is the yeah,
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm excited to watch both of those movies, but
yeah,
man, what a film.
yeah,
I you know what I sort of said this already, but it's still sticking with me as like maybe the most remarkable thing about it is like just how heroic he is.
yeah.
Because someone just said in the chat, he has no human desires. He's such a Chad. Like he's not in it for the money. He's not in it for the lust for the beautiful woman. He's
Not in it
in
for
it
the
for the
ladies, he's
good
in it for the
itself.
yeah. It just he is a agent of good.
Yeah, he's kind of a sneaky one,
Yeah,
and maybe he's a little rougher than you might expect. Like the perfect paragon of virtue to be, but he is on the side of the good, and he is in it for goodness sake. He cannot abide the terrible injustices happening here, and so he kills all the evildoers and then moves on. He's not in it for the money. He's in it for like things being set right. He sees all this stuff happening. He's like, nah, can't abide that.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, it's so good, man.
It's fucking
I
great.
want
So
more movies like this. I
yeah,
really do.
I want to see more like specifically. I want to see more like movies like this. I want to see more samurai movies. Like that's what I want to
Yeah.
see. Like I want to see shit like this. Give me cowboys. Give me samurai. That's all I'm interested in right now.
One of the things that I'm excited about because westerns obviously they had their heyday where they were like the popular movie, right? And I think that obviously changed. That kind of died off in the 70s. Uh, and we'll get a western every once in a while. I don't know when the last truly great one is. That'll be an interesting discussion for
Yeah,
you
well,
guys to
maybe
have
True
in the
Grit.
chat.
Maybe True Grit 2010.
Well, I really do like Django Unchained.
Oh, true, true, yeah. But you know,
I've
some
been,
people probably think Hateful Eight too.
I wasn't as big on the Hateful Eight,
I didn't like,
but
yeah, I didn't like that as much when I watched it
anyway,
earlier. But we might have to revisit that actually, because I feel like
yeah.
maybe my opinion.
Well, I think in time for whenever he does make his 10th quote unquote and final movie, we'll go through all of his movies. That would be a good thing to do. But in general, what I think is interesting about the Western is that a lot of what the stories set in the West were about was justice and the law. And I think there's a real appetite for those kind of stories again. Um, And one of the things that are interesting about westerns is that compared to a lot of other types of movies, even especially other types of period pieces, like they're still pretty cheap to make, you know, because
Yeah.
the West in America still looks like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not hard to find the wilderness. Like it's, you know, we've talked about this before when we've lamented the sort of dearth of good movies about like colonial era America or like, you know, post-revolution America, especially in like the cities and all that sort of stuff. It's just it's hard to make those kind of movies
Yeah.
because they're so expensive. You have to build all the sets and the costumes.
Yeah, because
And
like
nowhere in
Philadelphia doesn't
nowhere
look like it doesn't look like that
exactly. It looks
anymore.
nothing like that anymore. So it's tough. Whereas like, you know, the desert in Arizona still looks like that. And so I think it's possible that a couple a couple good westerns could really make the western as a genre and a setting pop off again.
Yeah.
It's interesting because like shows like Yellowstone and stuff like that, which I don't think they represent really ultimately what we want from that sort of Western storytelling, but the popularity of them does point to the fact that
Yes.
there's an appetite there,
Oh, for sure.
right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean oh, Hell or High Water, I guess you could call like a neo-Western kind of,
sure.
with
Crime movie.
yeah,
Yeah.
crime movie. So like, and I liked that a lot too. I think Taylor Sheridan has his finger on a pulse there. Like maybe not
Yeah,
the
you
exact
know,
pulse that we're
I've
looking
heard,
for.
I've never really because he has so
He has
many
so many
shows,
fucking shows, dude.
and I
So many
like,
shows.
and clearly people are watching them. I tried at one point to watch the first episode of Yellowstone, and I just did not vibe with it at all. Make of that what you will. And I've heard some criticisms of this sort of Taylor Sheridan sort of like that he has kind of a libtarded view of the West, you know, in the Western. But regardless of how good any of those shows actually are, their popularity does speak to an appetite for that
Yes.
sort of stuff. And the fact that Westerns, compared to a lot of things, are still comparatively quite cheap to make, I think there's a fertile ground being laid for a Western renaissance. We'll see if
Yeah.
it happens.
Yeah.
We'll see if it
Couple of
happens.
I was saying to you a little. So the Mummy has been getting a lot of looks and hype. Story of the Turn happened recently, or there will be happening. Showing that at theater. Sword and
You're talking
Sandals
about the
movies.
Bill. You're
Sword and
talking about.
Sandals
Oh yeah,
movies.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, those I feel like there's an appetite for that as well. Um,
Man, I am really not looking forward to Nolan's The Odyssey.
no, it looks
It
it
does,
looks
and that
so
sucks.
ugly. It looks so fucking
That
and
sucks because I would, you know, I would really like it to be good, but
best
it's
thing that
I
I've seen come out of that so far is that like with the Bane mask with the Greek phalanx helmet where it just basically says like they expect none of us in the horse, brother.
yeah, I don't have high hopes for that.
Yeah,
But anyway,
we'll see.
more like a fistful of dollars, please.
Yes, please. More like A Fistful of Dollars. More like
Truly
Yojimbo.
fun, very tightly
I haven't
written.
seen a few dollars more yet, but more like that too. Give us more like that.
We got a super chat from Dr. Diddler. By the way, I've told you this before, but great name. Just great name.
Yep.
Dr. Diddler says the Japan US Twitter exchange really impressed on me that the idea of the samurai and the cowboy are icons recognized by both. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think they have a lot in common, and I think we have a lot more in common with the Japanese than they want us to believe. You know
Yeah,
who they
you know
are.
who they are.
Oh yeah, but I love that sort of cultural exchange born out of like a genuine sort of respect and admiration for the sort of like I don't know, just like the sort of almost like the kitschy stereotypes of each other's cultures. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's something really charming about that. So that's been fun to see.
Yep.
I'm scared for the Odyssey.
I
Yeah, I'm
love this
scared.
movie.
Yeah,
Don't
fistful
have
of dollars.
yeah, we will cover Unforgiven. I will have Jamie watch Unforgiven. I
Oh,
promise. Don't you
definitely.
worry.
I'd like to watch more westerns. We're gonna watch more samurai movies and
Hell
stuff
yeah.
like that.
We'll watch both
I,
Unforgivens actually. We'll
yeah.
do both.
You know what? I think the thing I really have an appetite for right now, which is why this movie was so satisfying, is just a genuinely cool, heroic story.
Yeah.
Like that's what I want right now. Like a lot of other types of storytelling that can be like, tragic or, bleak, that all has its place. But I just want a genuinely heroic guy doing cool, awesome things. That's what I
Okay,
want.
real quick, Mr. Redhead, super chat from
Yeah, good luck with
Awesomum
that.
Basilicum. Okay. Have you heard of Hunting Matthew Nichols? Apparently, it's like Shelby Oaks, but not off. No, haven't
I'm
heard of
gonna
that one.
Google it right
Okay,
now.
yeah, very
Hunting
interesting. Yeah, Hunting Matthew
Matthew
Nichols. And real quick,
2024.
because Mr. Redhead has asked a couple of times, what about anti-westerns like Blood Meridian? Well, Jamie can't read, so he's not going to do Blood Meridian, but I've read Blood Meridian.
Hey, I
And
can read.
yeah, sure. But I have read Blood Meridian. I find it interesting. I don't love Cormac McCarthy. And the reason that I don't love Cormac McCarthy is because I think he's very much too cynical for me. Especially, I've never read his original version of No Country for Old Men, but I would not be surprised to find that all of the humor in that movie is injected primarily from the Coen brothers, not from him. I found Blood Meridian to be cool and sort of fascinating, especially like the character of Judge Holden is really like it's a very scary and just bleak portrayal of evil in the world, but I don't love the way his worldview works, and I don't think I don't love his worldview. I don't think that I don't think he had it, you know, if be it whatever you might understand about the human spirit. I don't think he had that. I think he was very much focused in more on the tragedy and the evilness and the capacity of humans to be awful to each other.
Yeah,
But I don't think he was very interested on looking anywhere close to the opposite side of that coin. And so I find
yeah.
Blood Meridian kind of in. That would be my assessment. I don't love it, but I do think it is cool. I
Based on what you've described of his work to me, I think that would be my problem with it too. Just because, I don't know, I'm too optimistic at heart
Yeah,
to vibe with that.
I have too much. I think I have too much faith in humanity,
And goodness
and
itself.
goodness itself, and dare I say, in God, than in to be particularly wowed by Cormac McCarthy. Um, but I do find it's a little bit like my relationship with Stephen King. I think he's a great ideas guy. I don't love his execution. So, I think that there is a way. I don't think you could adapt Blood Meridian. I think Topaz Dude is right. I think that's you have to be a particular kind of gross and hopeless cynic to adapt that faithfully, and I'm not really interested in seeing it, honestly. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah. Especially not right now for me. It's like there are certain types of stories where like I don't know, I might get to a point where I'd be more interested in that type of story again, but right now I'm not looking for like nihilism and despair or just like total degeneracy. I would like to see aspirational people in compelling stories. That's what I would like at this point, you know. I would like something to actually aspire to, not just to be like, "Oh, that's relatable," or "Oh man, aren't these people awful?"
yeah. I
It's like,
like
God,
so, and that's a good. I mean, I don't hate miserable or bleak movies. I mean, I don't think that In Bruges is often cited as a nihilistic, ending or a sad ending. And we've talked about this, right? I think there's a good or a happy ending in there. You just have to work for it. Um,
yeah,
I do like Banshees of Inisherin, and I don't think that
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 one,
ends like I don't think
that
that ends particularly. I don't think there's
I don't
a
like the
happy
ending of
ending
that
in that,
movie.
but I'm not a big fan of the ending. Yeah, I feel like
Yeah, that's the problem
that's
for
the
me.
thing. Yeah. It's like I think that
Because
like those always kind of hold him back a little bit. Like it's not that I don't like bleak movies, just that that worldview always holds it back from taking it to the next level for me, you know. And I can understand if like I guess if you're a kind of more on the nihilistic train, I can understand why that might appeal to you. Um, but it every like I can appreciate them. I just they're always just a bit like they're a little bit like they're held
I
back.
think I think the best movie that would fit this sort of description that I genuinely love is probably No Country for Old Men,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because it's like that's I think sometimes there's a certain kind of nihilist who watches No Country for Old Men and concludes that like yeah, like there's no such thing as like justice, man. Life is, meaningless, blah 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 blah. Whereas like I look at No Country for Old Men and I'm like, yeah, sometimes the bad guy gets away, at least in the short term, right? You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like it's less like, it's interesting to have a story where the bad guy, at least in the short term, gets away with something, you know? Because and the effect that can have on a person, right? Because really that's all about how it affects Tommy Lee Jones's character, right?
yeah,
And like how his sort of struggle to grasp the new world that's sort of changing around him, right? And so that doesn't feel to me like it's saying that it's portraying a very nihilistic view of the world itself, but just like this has an unhappy ending, and doesn't that isn't that unfortunate, but that's life sometimes. And it's like, yeah, that is life sometimes.
yeah.
So, that doesn't strike me as nihilistic really. But
And
it's probably as close as I'd get in terms of that kind of story that I genuinely really like.
yeah, and I don't want this to sort of spin into a thing of like I absolutely couldn't stand Blood Meridian. I did like it. I did enjoy. There were especially his writing. Like his poetry in his prose is very beautiful, right? Like he's really really good at capturing that. I just don't like. I don't love his view of the human spirit. That's
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. That's more what I'm getting at, and I understand. Yeah, happy to have that conversation. I'm not a huge fan, but I did enjoy it. I don't think I would read it again, but I'm glad I did read it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, Fistful of Dollars. It's one heck of a
Oh,
movie.
Chinatown. There's another one. That's a good one, Jay.
Oh yeah.
Chinatown's another one.
Chinatown's another great example of just like
Sometimes the
it,
bad
it
guy gets away movie. Yeah,
yeah, sometimes like yeah, exactly. It's not that like life is meaningless, it's that like yeah, sometimes things go awfully and there's horrible tragedy in the world, you know. Man, Chinatown's such a good movie, dude. I like that movie a lot. That's about as cynical as I can really stomach. It's like that kind of movie. Because I was talking to someone today. Someone was talking about a movie I had not heard of before, so I won't say what it was because I don't really remember what the title was. But he was talking about like how fucked up it was, and someone else was like, "Oh, I should check that out," and he's like, "No, I don't think you should check that out, honestly." And it sort of turned into an interesting conversation about like movies that are about terrible, messed up things, and then movies that are themselves terrible and messed up. Because I think there's a fine line, right? Because I think this is something I've been thinking a lot about recently. Because I think ultimately every movie should strive to be wholesome. Now, I think some people might hear that and think, oh, like every movie has to be like a kids movie. But I think when you understand wholesome in a broad sense, or like a literal sense, really, in terms of making people more whole and like healthier and better. Like every movie should strive to do that, even if it's about some of the worst things in the world. And I think even something like No Country for Old Men could be described that way in a sense because it like reminds you of like no, sometimes the bad guy does get away. You know what I mean? Like or sometimes things end tragically. Like tragedies can be wholesome
yeah,
also, if that makes sense. But I've seen a lot more movies in the past few decades where it seems like the goal of the movie itself is to just make things worse. You know what I mean? It's like ugly and depraved or cynical, like for its own sake. It's not about ugliness and depravity and cynicism. It is itself those things. And
Yeah.
that kind of movie I have no stomach for anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So those are my thoughts on Blood. Basically.
Yeah. A fistful of dollars. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us. Unless you had anything else to say about it, that's about all I have to say about it.
No,
Um,
I'm pretty set.
well,
I'm
thanks
excited to
for the
watch the
super
next one.
chats,
Yeah, thanks for the
friendo.
super chats, everybody. Thanks for the
Yeah,
conversation.
are we doing the next one this Sunday?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, we're locking it in. So you have till Sunday to watch for a few dollars more.
It's free on YouTube with ads, but the ads don't really matter. It's fine. Go watch it. It's free. It's free. Free real estate. Free movie.
Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you for the super chats. We certainly appreciate them. This is a fun movie to talk about. I'm looking forward to the next one, and we'll see you then, folks. Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye bye.